Commissioners, we're going to get started. Adrian, we're going to get started.
Sorry, what?
We're going to get started.
Okay.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. If you'll please take your seats, we'd appreciate it. Thank you, welcome back, and Happy New Year. I call this January 14th, 2025 hybrid administrative meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. And we will have a silent invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance that I'm going to ask Vice Chair Olivas to lead. Before we begin our moment of silence in great solemnity, I have to mention three bright lights in our world that have gone out in recognizing former President Jimmy Carter, a true ethicist and humanitarian and one of my heroes, passed. And also Dr. Harold Bailey, one of our own here in our community, has passed, and Representative Eliseo Alcon. So keep these wonderful men in your hearts and minds as we have a moment of silence. Thank you. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Thank you, Vice Chair. We move on to item 3, announcements. Madam County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? None. Okay, Commissioners, any changes to the agenda? I do have one. I would like to request that we move up the real estate item, the purchase and sale agreement between Bernalillo County and the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center, to be heard immediately following public comment and communications. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any concerns? All in favor of that change? Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Oh, I guess I could just, great. And with no other changes, sorry, we need to approve the full agenda. All those in favor? Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
And that passes. Thank you. I have couple of announcements. I offered the following statement regarding the closed meeting held today, Tuesday, January 14th at 4 p.m. Only those items described on the published notice and agenda for the closed meeting were discussed at that meeting, and I need a motion for approval of this statement.
Motion to approve?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And it will become part of the minutes of this meeting.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Closed meeting statement number 2, I move that the Bernalillo County Attorney be authorized to proceed with the matters discussed in the closed meeting held on Tuesday, January 14th, 2025, within the parameters set by this commission to include matters published in the closed meeting agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will move on to the election of our chair and vice chair for the calendar year of 2025. And we will now take nominations for the chair. And I would like to nominate our vice chair, Commissioner Eric Olivas. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other nominations from the floor?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Benson.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Frank Baca.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Really
Discussion?
quickly, but I would like to respectfully decline that, the nomination, that motion or stated by Mr. Benson, Commissioner Benson. I appreciate that thought, but being my first meeting, I think it would be, it'd be prudent for me to wait and not to seek that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baca. And the way we move this forward is, any other nominations from the floor? So the nominations are closed, and we move in order in which the nomination occurred. So we will start with Commissioner Olivas. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And, and that is, can you raise your hands again? That's 4, 2, opposed?
No.
And that passes 4-1. Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner, Mr. Chair
Thank you.
Olivas. With that, well, actually, I think I can move forward with the nomination of the vice chair. Do I have any
Madam Chair?
nomination? Chair Olivas.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Barboa as vice chair.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that passes. Welcome and congratulations again, Commissioner Vice Chair Barboa. And with that, I ceremoniously pass the gavel to our new chair of the Commissioner.
Thank you very
Chair
much.
Olivas.
I'm still going to have a hard time calling you Madam Chair here. I'm probably going to make that mistake a few times this meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues for your support. I wanted to take a moment as we transition here and, excuse me, just say a few words about our two-term Madam Chair, Barbara Baca, who has been in service here to us as a board for 2 years now, since 2023 and then again in 2024. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership over the last 2 years. We've been through a lot. We've had a lot of issues and important discussions and challenges that this commission has confronted under your leadership. And I think that we are all better off for having you and your wisdom and your expertise and your steady hand here to guide us over the last 2 years. And I would hope that I've learned a little bit from you, and I hope I can just be a fraction of what you've been as a leader for this commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, how very nice. I get to take home my own gavel. Thanks.
If I may, Chair.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so much. I just want to follow up with that. Exiting Chair Baca, I think I've expressed this to you many times, but I want the public to know that I have just so appreciated your leadership as chair. You have been solid, fair, dependable. You've worked hard, really brought the work to us, and I feel just really shown great leadership. I've been so impressed and just grateful in some of my hard times that we had such strong, reliable, smart leadership. So just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
If we could get a round of applause for our departing chair here. And I just want to take one more point of privilege and thank our new Madam Vice Chair. I'm really looking forward to serving with you here and leading the commission with you this year, and definitely going to be leaning on your expertise and your years of service here at the commission to benefit all of us and the entire organization in the county. So thank you for stepping up to serve.
Thank you. Second.
All right, that takes us to item number 5. This is our Open Meetings Act resolution. We are required to move through this resolution every year, the first meeting of the year. It's our first act every year. So do I have a motion to approve Administrative Resolution AR 2025-1?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion on this item from the board? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signal in the affirmative. Aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion passes 5-0. Next up, we've got our Count on Us Minute, where our county manager will introduce us to some outstanding work going on here at Bernalillo County. Madam County Manager.
Wonderful, and congratulations to our new chair and vice chair, and also with a big debt of gratitude to our former chair. Thank you. So what we're presenting today is the Keep NM Alive public education campaign, and it is in its third year. This initiative is centered on raising awareness and saving lives amidst the fentanyl and synthetic opioid epidemic. We want to make sure that the public knows about this initiative, and we had a really dedicated team of leaders across the county, strong communicators, strong activists who are bringing us this focus, and that's the focus of our Count on Us Minute tonight.
Fentanyl, like it killed something inside me. What really pushed me is after I lost Angel, because he died.
The Keep NM Alive initiative was born from the need to address the skyrocketing fentanyl epidemic and the wave of misery it's spreading across New Mexico.
Let's work to keep New Mexicans alive.
Bernalillo County formed partnerships with law enforcement, judges, healthcare providers, local, state, and federal government agencies, schools, and community members to create the Keep NM Alive Coalition.
My defining moment was the day that I lost my mom. Being in prison, the memory of her waving to me, that was my turning point. That was when I realized that she never got to see this version of me.
It's united in its cause to defeat fentanyl's death grip.
Harm reduction.
Bernco's team is a dedicated roster of year-round players. Deputy County Manager of General Services Lisa Cedillo White and Commissioner Adrian Barboa are leaders of this effort.
Fentanyl doesn't discriminate. It will never discriminate.
And a matter of fact, they're targeting people that look like your daughter.
And that is so, so sad.
Meeting with groups and individuals affected by fentanyl and offering compassion and assistance.
Hi, Tia.
Cheyenne Gutierrez has been a pro at maintaining schedules and keeping track of the many moving pieces of this effort. Amber Callahan has designed print media, including signs, promotions, and other informative creative materials we see on billboards and Johnny boards throughout the year.
Action.
Paul Evans, Chris Paul, and Evan Marquez bring the stories of the campaign to life in television media with the assistance of production outfitters.
And one of the things that's really wonderful about that space is that
they are on site for capturing educational events as well as promotional opportunities, including this year's Fentanyl Forum. They are also the creative forces behind the camera for the new Faces of Recovery series.
Narcotics have really been in my life pretty much my whole life. There's nobody in this world that was going to get me sober besides me. I needed to want it.
They filmed countless hours of video from interviews Melissa Smith with Communications Services conducted with 7 individuals recovering from fentanyl addiction. Their filming and editing talent bring these interviews to life to instill the message that recovery is possible. Kristen Fox ensures that social media audiences see the positive messages by crafting posts for Bernco's online platforms. Bernalillo County's webmaster Tracy Dingman helped make the redesigned Keep NM Alive website a reality. The site is full of information and resources about opioid abuse and recovery. Tracy and web editor Terry Kelly weave messages about the Coalition's projects and events into Bernalillo County's website, where the public can easily access and utilize them. Special events and the Coalition's presence at events play a big role as well, with the experienced guidance of Tammy Adolph, Ariel Lustig, and Rudy Mangum from Bernalillo County's Cultural Affairs and Marketing team, who also work alongside Media Matched Advertising Agency, a strong ally of the Keep NM Alive initiative. Special thanks to Chief Greg Perez, Alec Batts, Christopher Rodriguez, and Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue, Sheriff John Allen, Jamie Fuller, Elizabeth Vaquera, and the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, and Candace Hopkins, Daniel Trujillo, and the Metropolitan Detention Center for providing additional support and helping to make the Faces of Recovery a success.
I feel free. I feel like there's been a big weight lifted off of my shoulders.
Keeping New Mexicans safe and free from addiction is the goal of Keep NM Alive. With the county's dedicated team behind the effort, we can continue looking ahead to a future where fentanyl is a thing of the past.
If you really want it, you can do it.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to just ask for a round of applause for the great work of the staff and our volunteers and the community in addressing such a really challenging issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam County Manager, and again, thank you to the staff and for telling this beautiful, important story to all of us, to the whole community. Commissioner Barboa?
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a couple quick comments. Of course, I feel like the video is so great. You all many have seen many of the Keep Them Alive videos. If you go to the website, you could see more. This video, though, was to really show how much the county's work, grit, and just hard work, determination. Thank you so much. I think we have such quality product thanks to the expert staff we have here. Our events are always quality. Our website's growing to be there. And for me, I just want to name the things that are so important about keeping them alive, right? These are parents and families who are either in the struggle or have or continue to be in the struggle because they've lost someone, but they're trying to inform what we could bring and what they might have needed or could still need from our communities, which of course, is the things we hear about. We often think about treatment and the physical places or the facilities or insurance that's going to cover, but we don't think about this piece of community. And they're truly building a community. They're at all these events, handing out Narcan, educating people. And I was really shocked myself to see how many people come to ask and find out and learn because they're worried for their family, for their communities. They want to do what's right by their kids, or they know somebody and they want help. And so I just wanted to add that to, of course, one video can't encapture everything, but this really encapsulated the work the county's put behind it, and you see all those partners. I've never seen greater partnership before in my entire life, and I think it's just proven to the work that we bring, the county really brings forward, that makes people want to work with us. So thank you to our staff.
And if I could, I'm so sorry to my new chair and vice chair. I forgot to mention, I just wanted to acknowledge Lisa Cedillo, and thank you for your amazing work.
Any other commissioners with comments? Thank you. And really amazing that we're doing all of that work in-house. That's pretty incredible team. Okay, that concludes our Count on Us minute, and then we'll move into a couple of proclamations here. The first proclamation is one that I'm actually sponsoring, and this is on National Mentoring Month. And we have some individuals from various youth services organizations in the region here in the county. If you all want to make your way up to the podium, and I'm going to read through this, and then you all will have an opportunity to share a few words and tell us a little bit about what you do. So, the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners, sponsored by all of us commissioners up here today, whereas the New Mexico Youth Services Coalition, NMYSC, is an alliance of youth-serving nonprofit organizations, including Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central New Mexico, Junior Achievement of Central New Mexico, YMCA of Central New Mexico, Boys and Girls Club of Central New Mexico, and Warehouse 508, which collaborate to improve the well-being of K through 12 students. And whereas the New Mexico Youth Services Coalition members utilize mentoring programs to address critical needs among youth, such as fostering a sense of belonging, providing physical and mental health support, encouraging academic success, building workforce readiness, promoting financial literacy, as well as science, technology, engineering, arts, math, and health, STEAM H education. Cultivating healthy habits, resolving conflicts, encouraging physical activity, and developing leadership skills. And whereas New Mexico Youth Services Coalition members and their staff work in and around our local school ecosystems to support the needs of our youth while partnering with private philanthropy and public entities like Albuquerque Public Schools, the City of Albuquerque, the County of Bernalillo, the ABC Community School Partnership, and the State of New Mexico to braid funding to provide this critical programming. And whereas research shows that the two key indicators of a child's success are education and the presence of caring adults in their lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes January 2025 as Mentoring Month and commends the New Mexico Youth Services Coalition for its outstanding dedication to providing gold standard mentoring services to the youth of New Mexico, done this 14th day of January 2025 in Bernalillo County, state of New Mexico. Please give a round of applause to all of our mentors. Please say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for this beautiful proclamation. I don't know which of us wrote it, but it actually does define our coalition pretty well. So I'm Angela Reed Padilla, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters for about 2 more weeks. I've had 30 years in this position and will continue on with the agency. But what I would like to tell you about our coalition is we came together for a reason. So we've been collaborating for years, and with any industry in New Mexico, you know, people might compete, fight for dollars. We said, how can we be a collective together to make sure the voice of nonprofit is heard and that we work together in any way we can, share resources, share knowledge. We helped each other through COVID. We work with New Mexico Thrives to just connect nonprofits across the state. We want to be the voice for everything that isn't in the school or helps the schools or helps kids in so many different ways. So many of you as commissioners have worked with our agencies collectively and individually, and we thank you. This is an amazing commission to work with, and it's been my honor over these many years to work with you. So that's our message for you is when you hear us as a coalition, please know we're not just going for our own interests for this, that, the other. Collectively, we want to help our kids. 4 of our 5 agencies in our coalition are national organizations. That means we bring a lot of outside resources to New Mexico that help lift everybody up. So we're in out of school time, we're at in school time, all of that. So thank you for recognizing this really important month where we work to help the kids in New Mexico, and thank you for giving us this time. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to say anything, but just love working with these folks, and we'll probably add more agencies in the years to come as well. So thank you.
So I want to ask you to hold on 1 minute here. I wanted to see if any of the commissioners had any comments or questions for all, and then when we're all finished with that, I'll ask you guys to come up and accept the proclamation and take a picture with us if you don't mind.
Yay,
So.
definitely want the picture.
Madam Vice Chair, I saw you up first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to thank you all for just what you said right now. It is so important that we don't get in this competitive state, but rather we're just so much stronger together. We solve problems faster and bring in our resources. But both of my kids, I was a product of mentoring. My kids, both my kids were in Big Brothers Big Sisters. They were also in other mentoring programs in high school. So this is so important that the work we do, I believe, really changes the path for so many folks if we can just reach them. So thank you for this work, and I'm so glad that you're being recognized today.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Anyone else? No? Okay. I just wanted to say one last thing. I just wanted to commend you guys for your partnership with each other, but also with everybody else, the schools, the local government entities. You guys just do an amazing job. It was one of the first meetings I had when I came in as a commissioner. You all reaching out, coming in, and just telling me about what you do and why you do it and the partnerships that you have. I think that was really brilliant on your part because, you know, you have to educate elected officials and you have to educate the public, frankly, on this important work that you guys do. And you do a great job of that. And then just recently I was with Colby and Rebecca and some of your team out at Kennedy Middle School getting to tour one of your I believe it was a Boys and Girls Club site, and just seeing the great work that you guys are doing there with our kids, filling that gap in time that is so critical for kids to be around something healthy and positive and active and mentally stimulating. And it's just so important. So just to let my colleagues know, we were planning a more robust presentation, I guess, about what the county and the city currently fund in this area and having a little bit more discussion about what we're doing and what we could be doing. we weren't quite ready for that, but our Deputy County Manager Townsend and our County Manager are working on that. And so we're hoping to have you back here at the end of the month. It might go a little
We
further
will be
than
here.
that, but they'll be in touch with you for sure. So thank you all so much for being here. And if you want to come up and take a picture and accept the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your work.
All right, and we've got one additional proclamation this evening. Item B, our county manager is going to present the GEO Bond Committee acknowledgement. Madam County Manager.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to see if there are any members of the Bernalillo County Bond Committee here. Yay. Okay, if you wouldn't mind standing up while I embarrass you. Thank you. This is to acknowledge the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners is commending the members of the 2024 Bernalillo County Bond Committee for their dedication and targeted efforts to promote the passage of the 2024 general obligation bonds. Committee members volunteered their time, their expertise, and I'm sure they talked a lot of their friends into helping too, to make sure that we had an opportunity to educate the public through outreach about the importance of the bonds and the benefits of their passage to the community. Their efforts contributed to the passage of all 6 GEO bonds on the general election ballot. The bonds will fund numerous local projects to provide essential services to residents, including public safety, transportation, storm drains, utilities, libraries, parks, and housing. So to acknowledge the members, I want to acknowledge each of them. Carlos Padilla, who's the chair, Richard Torres, who's a treasurer, Bob Wood, Scott Perkins, Benjamin Gardner, George Radnovich, Chris Baca, Logan Brandenburg, Jonathan Pena, Enrico Gradi, and to thank also Liz Ham, who was a coordinator. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that acknowledgement. And I just wanted to say, that work is just so important, and our bond package for 2024 passed resoundingly, and the work of that committee and all the staff that work on those projects is just incredible and invaluable to all of our community. So thank you. All right, takes us to item 8, public comment and communications. So for public comment, we will hear public comment before communications. Each person has 2 minutes, and you will be alerted about your time remaining when your name is called. Please make your way to the podium if you are speaking in person. Before making your statements, please state your name for the record. To maintain order and decorum, and in the spirit of professionalism and respect for everyone present, speakers must adhere to the 2-minute time limit. If the conduct of the presenter violates the rules, they may be subject to removal. Tani, can you please announce the names?
Good afternoon, Chair Olivers. Thank you. We have 8 speakers signed up. I will start with the in-person one. First is Don Schroeder, then Mike Canfield, and then Marianne Bill.
I don't see Mr. Schrader here this evening, so Mr.
So
Canfield.
I will go the second one, Mike Canfield.
Can we just talk when we get to the item, and would that be okay? And I'd waive my time now and do it then? Be great. Thank you.
Marianne Bill.
She's also with your group.
She's not here tonight, but so we'll waive her time as well.
Thank you.
Maria Tooley.
Okay. we're waiving that one as well.
Dr. Geraldo Sionello.
All right. Well, good evening, Madam Chair and County Commissioners. First of all, I just want to wish you guys a happy, healthy New Year to you and your family. I am an alternative health doctor and minister. Most of you know I waited 9 years legally to become a naturalized U.S. citizen. Now, can we truly be honest with ourselves, our souls? As I look back these last 4 years, all I can remember that trends are domestic and national security, other COVID, withdrawal of Afghanistan, balloon spy, DEI, border crisis, riots, increased crime, assassination attempts, election fraud, hurricane, fire, etc., which brought us all fear, confusion, division, disunity, chaos, and deception, but certainly not law and order, which promotes life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness according to our Constitution. This coming Monday, we celebrate not only Martin Luther King, but also the inauguration of Trump. But did you know that the values of Dr. King fought for throughout his life are deeply ingrained within the Republican Party? In 1884, emerged as the Anti-Slavery Party. It was President Abraham Lincoln who issued the Emancipation Proclamation and who passed the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Furthermore, it was President Lincoln and his party that passed the 14th Amendment, granting citizenship to African Americans, and the 15th Amendment, which gave African Americans men the right to vote. Dr. King's renowned words speak to the hearts of both Republican Party and Democratic Party, and I quote, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character," end quote. That said, I have a dream also that our state and nation will once again come together in unity, peace, and love, just as Christ, our Lord Jesus, loves us all unconditionally to promote life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Thank you, and may God bless all.
Thank you, Mr. Sionello.
Elena Giassi.
My name is Elena Giacchi. I am a proud member of the Sheriff's Office Advisory and Review Board, which you will be here about the report shortly after this. The reason I'm here is to ask for a addition to the report for on October 26th, we did the listening session in the Southwest Valley, of which Senator Linda Lopez, also supported that and did that in support of the constituency in the South Valley. We had 30 people show up. Of the 30, 40% came and made a comment. Out of all of those comments, we made a record of those comments. Unfortunately, when it came to doing the report for that you will be seeing soon, in section 11, under the listening session, there was a summary, but it did not include those comments directly from the community. What I would like to see is that added to it. Originally, one of the points was that it was too lengthy, and so there is a footnote, but it's a very small footnote, and even when I went to see the footnote and follow the footnote, it was very difficult for me to find out where those additional comments were. I want to acknowledge all the hard work that the Sheriff's Office Advisory members do, and I also want to acknowledge Chair Judge Tommy Jules, how I know him. And this is the last time he's ever going to be doing a meeting like this, and he's done a lot of good work, as well as Vice Chair Deb Strongen, who has done this report without payment with a whole lot. So I thank you, and I ask for that consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Giacchi, and thank you for your service on that board.
I will now move to online speaker, Debbie O'Malley, and then Amber Benson.
Mr. Chairman, we've lost our Zoom connection, so we can come back to this, or if we can wait till we can reconnect.
Okay. If it's the will of the commission up here, we can move on to the advisory report, and then we could go back to Zoom after that, just for the respect of everyone's time. So, Chair Jewell, if you're ready.
Chairman Olivas and members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to present the annual report of the Sheriff's Office Advisory and Review Board. In aid of this presentation, let me again introduce our vice chair. This is Debbie Strongen. And in addition, let me also mention the members of the board that are present. You heard from Ms. Giacchi, Elena,
Mr. Jill, I know you're trying to look back and introduce people, but if you could stand a little closer to the mic just so everyone
Sure.
can hear you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Elena Giacchi, Dr. Diane Layden, and Mr. Walker, would you all please stand? So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned one, that somebody said, man, we're early in the agenda. Judge, you must have stroke. I said, I assure you I have no stroke with this commission, but we really appreciate it, the opportunity to be here. And Vice Chair Strongen is chiefly responsible for the report that has been provided to you. She's outdone herself again, 13 pages of substance, attachments in an appendix that does include Ms. Giacchi's detailed notes on the listening session. Those are found on page 17, in fact, attachment 2. So be assured that those are there verbatim. But the report, I'll briefly say, really chronicles the work. We again met monthly. In addition to our meetings, had 2 listening sessions, one of which Ms. Giacchi mentioned. We have recommendations, as we have had in the past. There are 4 to the county commission this year. There are simple recommendations. One asks you to give further consideration to the red flag laws and how we can impress upon the community and our leaders the importance of those. All are in support of the sheriff. I want to mention that the sheriff has been a very good collaborator with us, and we appreciate the effort. I do see Sheriff Allen and some of his senior staff and want to acknowledge him and his undersheriffs. We sincerely appreciate the work that he's done, the transparency and accountability that he's shown. I'll yield to Vice Chair Strongen for any comments that she might want to make.
Well, thank you for having us here tonight to present this report. And I don't have any particular comments to make about the report unless anyone has questions, which we're happy to address. I would like to say that we were hoping that Chair Jewell would remain on the board, and I'm still hoping that somebody on this commission will be able to persuade him. My persuasive powers have failed, but he has been on this board since day one, during probably the most difficult time when we were forming a new board and during COVID, so we're a bunch of people who didn't know each other meeting by Zoom. And Judge Jewell has really made this team coalesce, work together. He has made a real effort to listen to everybody's point of view and let everyone have their say on this board. So on behalf of the rest of the board, we would like to thank you for being our leader for 4 years and doing a fabulous job.
while I'm certainly appreciative, we needn't make this presentation about me. I think there are very capable people on this board, and I think Commissioner Barboa, I want to thank you. I believe that it was Commissioner Colley that initially appointed me, and you let me stand for some reason, I'm not sure, but I appreciate the opportunity. What an opportunity for service to the community. It's been an education for me. Thank you so much. I got elected grandpa for the third time, and so hopefully I'll spend a little more time there. Thank you all. Any questions?
Commissioner Baca.
I would just like to extend my, just my thanks to you all. I mean, we know that we have a great sheriff in Sheriff John Allen. He is a top cop in Bernalillo County, and he welcomes the advisory board's close scrutiny, and that is what makes us a great policing force of Bernalillo County. We have transparency and we have citizen engagement, and so I really appreciate the role that you all play. And on a personal note, Judge Jewell, thank you personally for your service. Appreciate it.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, I'll start off with talking to Judge Jewell. I know you don't want to make this about you, but I just want to say thank you for your service. I was so pleased when I heard, when I heard Commissioner Colley coming up with the idea of a advisory, but I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. But when I heard that you were his pick for this district, I just knew it was going to be okay, and that your leadership was going to mean so much to this. So thank you. I've been someone, I worked in the juvenile justice system and was a fan of you when I was a young case manager in the field, and I'm so thankful for your leadership across Bernalillo County and across for our state. So thank you, and I'm sad to see you go too, and I do agree, we have strong people and they will continue on in your legacy, but thank you for that work. And second to Ms. Strong, and thank you for doing this excellent work. These reports are excellent every year, and this is even better. I think we asked before for like direct recommendations, and I see them here. I did want to ask to this, I see that, and I don't know if you put these in priority, but the number one recommendation for the county from the advisory is to look for opportunities for Bernalillo County Behavioral Health to partner with the Attorney General's office and law enforcement agencies, including BCSO, to educate the public about potential protections offered by the New Mexico Red Flag Law. So I'd just like to hear from your perspective if there's more nuance to this. We did support red flag laws in our legislative priorities. If there's just something in what you've been able to hear and learn, and maybe this nuance around connecting behavioral health and the Attorney General, just in direction to us, if I could hear if there's any.
I don't think there was any implication that the commission wasn't acting in accordance with the recommendation. Is simply just in general, the research that was done by various members of the board, including Dr. Layden, who's here tonight, suggests that a lot of people just aren't, a lot of members of the public aren't aware of the protections of the red flag law, and that we as a commission felt that it was important, particularly with our sheriff who supports the use of the red flag law in appropriate cases, that the public be made aware of their rights under this very important law. So.
And I don't think we want that to overshadow the focus on behavioral health. This sheriff has put together a unit that is the flagship. I think there's, in fact, some national attention on this behavioral health unit in the sheriff's office. So we're asking the commission to get behind that behavioral health effort generally, but our discussion took us to red flag laws.
Totally, and I wasn't taking it any, I was really actually impressed by it, and just wanted to hear if there was any nuance, and if I may, Chair. I think you're absolutely correct that, right, when we have, oftentimes we've seen a tension between law enforcement willing to do it. So I'm so thankful as well that we have Sheriff Allen willing to enforce these laws. Could you give us, just since we are in public space and this opportunity for awareness, a simple take on the red flag laws and what you would want folks to know about it?
Well, I would want the general public to know that this is an option, that they can work with law enforcement in the proper case. I know that there are changes being suggested that are before the legislature, and what I've read of those, I personally think are a great idea to allow law enforcement personnel to be the complainant rather than forcing a family member who might be afraid or, for whatever reason, isn't able to go public about the situation that they find themselves in.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ryan. Thanks again for this report. Thank everyone, SORB, for your service.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judge, Madam Vice Chair. I just want to say my appointment, Jim Stewart, who is a retired law enforcement officer who brings that perspective, but also he's retired, so he's just a member of the community, has loved working on you, with your entire group, and talks about how functional and effective it is, especially with your communications with Sheriff Allen. Yeah, thank you for this report, and keep it up and enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Benson, we're sorry that Jim didn't make it here tonight. He has just been a great addition to the board. Thank you for his appointment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Any other commissioners want to chime in on this? I'll just say a few words here. You guys do amazing work, and we're well represented in District 5 with our vice chair and Dr. Layden and Ms. Giacchi. We have a lot of great folks, specifically from my district, that are working hard on this board. And Commissioner Barboa took the great opportunity to highlight the red flag laws, and I wanted to spend just a minute on your second recommendation. Because that is even more so in the purview of this commission as we enter our budget cycle, and we've got our budget people up here to my right. You talk about the need for really adding more civilian positions in the Sheriff's Department. We know that recruitment and retention of law enforcement is a national challenge. And so I just wanted to thank you for this recommendation that we really consider supporting the sheriff with additional positions to allow functions that are being performed by uniformed deputies to shift to civilians, because that means more cops on the streets doing the important work that they do. So I think that's a very thoughtful recommendation and very practical for this board, because it's not a huge ask for what looks like just a couple of positions. So thank you for highlighting that, and I just wanted to make sure all my colleagues heard that as well as we go into budget cycle. And then the last thing on here, you highlight the need to make sure that we keep the board staffed so that you don't have to do all the work. It's a lot easier if you're able to share that. And it sounds like we've largely kept up our end of the bargain, but we did have you a little understaffed for several months this year. And so hopefully we can all step up when there is a vacancy and make sure that we fill your board quickly so you can all share the work, the important work that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention the sheriff was before us indeed last week. And as we go into the legislative session, I certainly don't want to steal his thunder, but he does have a plan, and he does have needs that he will be seeking funding for. So I'm sure in addition to your own budgetary discussions, he would appreciate your support with the legislature.
Trust me, he lets us know.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair. Really appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we can shift back to public comment if we have those folks on Zoom. I believe Senator O'Malley might be appearing later for another item, right?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we will move on to Amber Benson. Ms. Benson, go ahead.
Hi, yes, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So for the record, my name is Amber Benson, and I'm just speaking to the sale of the property to the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. So dear Bernalillo County Commissioners, the Bernalillo County Extension Office is in full support of our current location and property being sold to the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. while we have many fond memories here at the current site, we have outgrown our current site. We are currently looking forward to our new proposed site at Sandia Ranch, which will allow the Extension Office to expand and enhance its current programming in 4-H, agriculture, master gardeners, food preservation and safety, health and wellness, diabetes prevention, and overall education and outreach to the public. We thank you for the opportunity to serve our community, and the sale of our property will help the efforts to build out the new location. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes general public comment.
Thank you, Julianne. All right, that is going to take us on to our amended agenda item, which was moved up here. Real estate, and this is the purchase and sale agreement between Bernalillo County and the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. And we have Ben McIntosh to present.
Good evening, Chair Olivas and Commissioners. Good to see you tonight. So the item before you now is a request by Real Estate to authorize the county manager to execute a sale and leaseback agreement between Bernalillo County and the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center for the property located at 1510 Manal Extension Northwest, and to execute any amendments or changes made by the State Board of Finance. The subject property is approximately 4.47 acres, is located within the city of Albuquerque, is north of Indian School Road, west of 12th Street, and south of Manal Extension. The property is currently zoned PD in the city's IDO. Indian Pueblo Cultural Center serves as a gathering place for Pueblo culture. It is celebrated through creative and cultural experiences. IPC is governed by the 19 Pueblo District, a sovereign government formed by the tribal councils of the 19 New Mexico Pueblo communities. By approving the sale and lease, the county will provide IPCC the land needed to plan and build additional facilities that will continue to provide services to the county and city's constituency. The sale will be in accordance with all laws, rules, and regulations. The proceeds of the sale will be utilized to build out Sandia Ranch, where 4-H and Extension Office will be relocated in the future. Both the 4-H and Extension service buildings will remain on the premises until they're ready to relocate to the new Sandia Ranch location. Leases are negotiated for fair market rent with IPCC for both the 4-H and Extension buildings. In addition, an agreement has been made with IPCC for the existing community garden, used by the community for the foreseeable future. Therefore, staff requests approval to authorize the county manager to execute the purchase and lease agreement and any subsequent amendments required by the State Board of Finance and all documents to perfect title in the proposed property sale. If approved, next steps will be submitted to the State Board of Finance for the February meeting, with a proposed closing occurring at the end of February. This concludes my presentation, and I will stand for questions from the commission.
Commissioner Baca.
Thank you, Ben. I would like to move approval.
Second.
And then make a statement, because we do have a few people here that I would like to bring to the podium, because what I want to say, and Ben, thank you very much, and thank you, Lisa, thank you, Ken Martinez, our attorney, for moving this forward. This is a success story in the community. I think we all know the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and what a jewel it is to the whole Bernalillo County, but also in my district to the North Valley, a very important part of the near North Valley. And so this disposition of this property was a very carefully thought about between the neighbors and the Extension Service and the 4-H, because it's an existing place where the community gathers. We know it. We have master gardeners going there. It's a really important piece as a Bernalillo County function. Fortunately, we have Sandia Ranch in the planning that's further in the North Valley that we can, as you heard, we can transfer this purpose to. And so they came together, they came to agreement, which is such a wonderful thing for all of us when a neighborhood agrees with government, and we are moving forward in a really positive way. And so I'm the last component of this is that near North Valley has sacrificed that local gathering place. So this is the reason that I am pushing for, working with them, a near North Valley center for all ages, we're calling it. We're looking, we have a little bit of money, we're going to the state for more money, but there is a real need where this has left us, because Sandia Ranch is much further north. So with all that, that's the whole picture that I came into 2 years ago when I first started, that I wanted to express my thanks, and I wanted to bring Mr. Canfield up from the IPCC, if you want to say a few words or answer any questions that anyone has, and then allow the neighborhood association also to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and immediate past chair. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. My name is Mike Canfield. I'm the president and CEO of the Indian Public Cultural Center. I have some folks with me today I'd like to introduce. We have a board member, Bruce Bleekman, who's a board member for the Cultural Center. Our chief operating officer is Monique Frawa from the Pueblo of Jemez, and our vice president of property development, who's going to work this property like he's done all the others, and that's Mark Thompson from the Pueblo of Acoma. I would like to say on behalf of the 19 Pueblos, thank you for this. This is a really exciting time for us, an exciting opportunity. You know, this is really a great example of a public-private tribal partnership. There's been many of those before, and there'll be more with our organization. But this is really a great one because this land was once the land of the Albuquerque Indian School, which our Native people have a long history with that land, and we're grateful to have it back so that we can incorporate it into our campus. We have great plans. We're excited to be partnering with the Extension program. As long as they're there, we're going to partner with them because they have a master gardening program, and we're going to increase ours and work with them in collaboration. We also, Mark and his team have put together a plan to bring that property into our campus, beautify that. We're going to do some fencing immediately and do some landscaping. So when you drive by in a couple months, you'll drive by and say, oh, that's the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and not 4-H. But we're excited to have them as tenants for the time being. So on behalf of the 19 Pueblos and our team at the Cultural Center, thank all of you. Madam Past Chair, thank you for your involvement over the last couple of years. And Mr. Martinez, thank you for your help. And of course, this guy's been great to work with as well. And I think we came up with a great deal for everybody. It's kind of a win-win-win for us. So again, thank you all for that. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Baca, Commissioners, I'm Merritt Tully. I'm the current president of the Near North Valley Neighborhood Association, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of other people from our neighborhood association that are here. Joe Sabatini, our long-term secretary, and Marth Bechtel, who's also on the board. This is a happy day for the Near North Valley neighborhood. Over a year ago, we expressed our strong support for the county selling its County Extension 4-H property to the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center, and we are very pleased that the sale has reached this important point. We look forward to IPC's redevelopment and use of the property. We're not just confident, we know IPCC's ownership will benefit the neighborhood and the greater community. Mike Canfield and his team are just the best. And we're pleased that the County Extension Service will be moved to brand new modern facilities out on North Edith. And of course, we're grateful that Commissioner Baca is working with North Valley leaders, neighborhood leaders, to find and fund a new location for the community center that was once going to be built at the County Extension property. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Tully.
Commissioner Baca, anything further?
I just, again, I'm really thankful. I think that this is an investment in our community. It's an investment, as Mr. Canfield said, it's a true partnership and a win-win-win. So thank you, and I urge your support.
Any other comments from the board? All right, all those in favor, please signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hashtag land back.
I'm sorry, say again? Congratulations, Commissioner Baca, and to all of the parties present. Takes us to item 9, approval of our minutes. We have our December 10th minutes before us. I make a motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 administrative meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? We've already read the closed meeting statements into the record. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signal in the affirmative. Say aye. 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 Any opposed?
I would just abstain, not having been present at that meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that passes on 4-0 with one abstention. And then item 10, we have our consent agenda. Madam Clerk Kavanaugh, could you please provide resolution numbers for item 10E, 10F, 10G, and ordinance numbers for 10J, 10K, 10L, and 10M?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For item 10E, FR 2025-2, 10F is AR 2025-3, 10G, AR 2025-4, 10J is ordinance 2025-1, 10K is ordinance 2025-2, 10L is ordinance 2025-3, and 10M is ordinance 2025-4.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. The consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Therefore, I move approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Baca. Any discussion on consent? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signal in the affirmative. Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion passes 5-0. And I wanted to just take a quick point of privilege here for two items. We just appointed several individuals to boards and commissions serving our county. We had, some of those folks before us this evening, and just wanted to thank them for their service and their ongoing dedication to making life here a better place. And then on item G, which is our Bernalillo County Housing Department fair market rents, I just wanted to highlight, because this commission has made housing and affordable housing our top priority this year in the session, that if you look back just a few years, the rents that we approve, and this is sort of what we will pay as fair market rents for housing vouchers and tenants, rents in the area have more than doubled, 100%, over 100% increase, and that's just what we are paying at the county. So I just wanted to highlight that and, signal to the public and my colleagues what a serious issue we've got there. So that's all. All right, our next item is adoption of ordinance and amendments to county code. Madam Clerk, could you please provide ordinance numbers for 11A, 11C, 11D, and 11E?
Yes, Mr. Chair. 11A is ordinance 2025-5. 11C is ordinance 2025-6. 11D is ordinance 2025-7. And 11E is ordinance 2025-8.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And our first item then is going to be item A, the project revenue bond ordinance for St. Anthony's Plaza. And we have Executive Development Officer Marcos Gonzalez to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. The Economic Development staff requests approval of the adoption of the ordinance in connection with the proposed project located within Bernalillo County for the purpose of financing the planned acquisition and rehab of St. Anthony's Plaza through the development of the project site and operations set forth in the project plan, providing for the conveyance of the proposed project to the county for purposes of facilitating tax abatement for the proposed project, memorializing the commitment of St. Anthony's Plaza Community Partners, LP, to maintain affordability throughout the lease term. And this will be for a rehab of 160 existing housing units with tax exemption for a term of 30 years. I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. And this item is sponsored by Commissioner Baca.
Yes, I move approval.
I'll second.
And,
And I guess we can go ahead and move on to if there's any questions, and then we do have to convene a public hearing before we move on.
we can convene the public hearing.
Okay. So we'll now convene a public hearing. Did anyone sign up to speak on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no signups for this item.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
I would just urge your support on this. This is a project that is in great need of repair. I think that this is something that we get back to our affordable housing needs, and this is just spot on, and I want to thank Mr. Gonzalez for working on this, and urge your support.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Not seeing any comments. It looks like Commissioner Barboa stepped out of the room for a moment. All those in favor, signal in the affirmative, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, she's still here. Okay, so that passes on a 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Item B is a finance item. We are going to consider a public hearing on low-income property tax rebate pursuant to NMSA 7-2-14.3. And we have our Deputy County Manager of Finance, Ms. Shirley Reagan, to present. And I'm happy to let you go, but I do have sort of a legal process question here once we get going.
First, I'd like to say congratulations, Chair Olivas. I'll have to keep saying Vice Chair, and Vice Chair Barboa. Congratulations, and thank you, former Chair Baca, for all that you did for working with the commission. Again, my name is Shirley Reagan. I'm the Deputy County Manager for Finance, and I'm here to present the agenda item for the public hearing on a low-income property tax rebate pursuant to NMSA 7-2-14.3. The action will be to conduct a public hearing, receive public testimony on the question of whether the low-income property tax rebate should be adopted, and then introduce for discussion and possible adoption of a low-income property tax rebate ordinance. To give a little background, NMSA 7-2-14.3 requires that in January of every odd number year, the board conduct a public hearing on the question of whether the low-income property tax rebate should be adopted. Taxpayers with a modified gross income of $24,000 or less residing in counties that have enacted a low-income property tax rebate ordinance in accordance with the statute are eligible to apply for a property tax rebate. The maximum rebate under the statute is $350. Married tax filers filing individual returns may each claim only 1/2 of the income tax rebate. And this rebate is on their New Mexico income tax form. It is not on their property tax bills. In order to qualify for this rebate, the taxpayer must have a principal place of residence in the county that has adopted the low-income property tax rebate ordinance, not be a dependent of another individual, file a New Mexico state income tax return with a modified gross income of $24,000 or less, and not be an inmate in a public institution for more than 6 months during the taxable year in which the rebate is claimed. This year, we use the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department provided the financial impact of this using Bernalillo County actual data from the the tax year 2023 income tax returns. So they were able to take that data and perform a calculation. This has to be done at the end of the tax season because what the state will do is once they've collected the rebate, if the ordinance was passed and they were doing it, they would bill Bernalillo County for all the rebates that they applied during that tax year for those tax returns. So that's what they did. The estimates were calculated using 65,406 tax filers, which were eligible for the property tax rebate which would be eligible for the property tax rebate in Bernalillo County. If 100% of these individuals participated and each qualified for the maximum rebate of $350, the impact could be as high as $15.6 million. This cost estimate represents 10% of the current annual property tax revenues, or 3% of the total general fund budget. The TRD will issue the low-income property tax rebate to the taxpayer, like I said, when they file their tax return. And then they will provide Bernalillo County with an accounting of the amounts that they rebated and expect payment for that from Bernalillo County. Potential county actions: if an ordinance is adopted, Bernalillo County will be responsible for rebating the taxes collected for all the 16 entities that we collect taxes for. and the county does not have the option to bill the other entities such as the city of Albuquerque or UNM for the rebated taxes. The rebate must be paid from the county's existing revenue or its taxing authority. For these reasons, then the second option is, however, should the board consider adoption of a low-income property tax rebate, it should be noted that when the low-income property tax rebate legislation was enacted, taxing authority under NMSA 7-2-14.4 was also provided. Under this statute, the Board of County Commissioners may, by resolution, submit to the voters the question of imposing an additional property tax not to exceed 1 mil, which is $1 per $1,000 of taxable value, to fund the rebate. The question cannot be submitted to the voters until an ordinance allowing the low-income property tax rebate becomes effective. If voters do not approve the tax, the county would still be liable for funding the rebate and paying the state. If the county chooses to pass a low-income property tax rebate ordinance, a one-year postponement of the effective date of the rebate would allow sufficient time to conduct the mill levy election if recommended. We also ask that providing a sunset language that the ordinance would be automatically repealed if the election fails. If the board votes to introduce an ordinance to adopt the low-income property tax rebate, the ordinance will be published and presented for adoption at the February 11th, 2025 administrative meeting. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Deputy County Manager Reagan. Like I said, I wanted to actually just start off with a process question, maybe for you or for our legal staff. I'm trying to wrap my head around Section G of the state statute that sort of talks about when we are supposed to hear this and when we can act on it. And I'm just sort of trying to understand if we hold a public hearing today, we would be required to take action on this within 30 days, is my understanding. But if we held the public hearing at the end of January, would that allow for an additional 14 days, essentially, for consideration of this? I just want to make sure that before we, if we choose to move into hearing, that we understand the timeline that we are committing ourselves to. Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to call you Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your service over 2 years, and welcome, Madam Vice Chair. We read G over and over again this afternoon and make sure we have a great understanding. We think that the safest way to move forward is we've convened a public meeting today. You are being advised by it if you would want more time. I think that's available, but I would advise that if we move for more time to look at this matter, we try to complete it within the month of January. Just because the statute says that in January of every odd number year in which the county does not have in effect the ordinance. So it does kind of sound like what you're saying. I hear what you're saying is saying, if we start it in January, does that give us 30 days to come back in February? You know, I think arguably so, but probably the safest bet or the more conservative legal advice would be if we can reconvene to finish going over this, because we have 2 meetings in January. We have January 28th. In December, November, we didn't have that lucky option, but now we have 2 meetings. So I think the best advice is if we start today and more time or discussion or study is needed, then I would recommend that we would then convene the meeting today and then defer further action till the January 28th meeting. And I hope that answers the question.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. So with that, I'll open up the floor to my colleagues. Commissioner Barbara Baca first.
To me, what I think I'm hearing the attorney say is that have we opened a public meeting yet? I mean, what we're saying is we have to move to convene a public meeting. And then if we need, I have some questions still, and I've expressed them to Deputy County Manager Reagan. And so I would like to start with if we have agreement, the public hearing today. And then if we can't make a decision today, I mean, I think that I would prefer to take it up and defer it for conclusion on the 28th. That's my position.
Okay, any other process discussion here? Since I guess that we need to first settle that issue. So I'm hearing a consensus to move forward with public hearing. So we will now convene a public hearing, and for our staff, did anyone sign up to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one sign up this evening, Senator Debbie O'Malley. Senator O'Malley, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes,
Can you hear me? Oh, here we go. Okay, now. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to open up my camera, which I don't see any way of doing that. So not on my screen anyway. So I'll just start speaking. Okay, join as panelist. I'll do that.
Thank you, Senator. We see you now.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, first, I also want to add my congratulations to the new Vice Chair, the new Chair, and also congratulations to those who just recently won elections, their seats. I look forward to working with the Commission. So I do thank you very much for moving forward with the public hearing for this legislation. I know many of your constituents will likely weigh in before you are required to make a decision by the end of the month as to whether or not to adopt this rebate program. And I think that's a good thing that you will hear from them. I think that you will see strong support. I do believe that it's past time to give low income property owners some relief. There are seniors and low income families who are trying their best to hold on to their homes, especially given the ever-increasing costs of home repairs, consumables, and utilities. The amount of revenue that would be returned to low-income households that would apply for this rebate is nominal. And I believe it's been overinflated by staff. And it's happened every year. Certainly it started when I announced my support for it many years ago on the county commission. I had recommended adoption and while on the county commission, and it failed largely because of strong opposition from staff. I did reach out to someone who was involved in creating this and supporting this legislation through the state, and I think it's been misrepresented. I can see that strong opposition still exists. And after, conversations with my colleagues, it appears that, there might be other excuses as to why this program could not be adopted. So I think it's good that we're going to be having a hearing. This whole idea of, well, if you adopt it, you probably should consider raising taxes. First of all, I mean, that's a decision by the commission whether or not they decide to raise taxes. And I'll tell you what, it's not a very popular decision. Which brings me to other concerns, and it has to do with, just the financial health of the county. I really ask, and I've brought this up with other commissioners, that you really take a hard look at the county's reserve balance and their policies regarding it. And I say this because now I'm moving to the Senate, and we're getting a lot of requests from the county. Our property taxes have gone up every year, and the county's reserves continue to grow. The county is not a bank. It's not a private equity firm. It's a public agency whose mission is to provide needed services, programs, infrastructure to county residents, not build a reserve in order to receive a AAA rating from bond agencies. And I'll use the example as the Water Authority has a AA rating, hasn't hurt its ability to borrow funds because its priority is improving the water infrastructure for the county. And I know this because I've served on the water authority for years. There is an opportunity, I know, for me to speak at the next hearing, and I will be reaching out right to my constituents as well. I think this is a program that is long overdue, and obviously I strongly support it. And I thank you for listening to me today, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you very much for being with us today, Senator, and congratulations on your election and the work you'll soon be embarking on for our 60-day session. Look forward to working with you up in Santa Fe.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So then we will, let's hear the will of the commission at this point. Commissioner Frank Baca, I think you raised your hand earlier, or?
Yes, just
Go ahead.
appropriate to ask a few questions at this point in time. Ms. Reagan, I'm just trying to understand the program. It is of some interest to me because of the combination of requirement of home ownership and low income. And that is a dynamic that occurs pretty frequently in District 2. I understand there's a high percentage of home ownership in that area, one of the highest in the countries, if you look at that limited demographic, because of the nature of how we transition property to within our families. So this is something that is interesting to me, just personally and philosophically. But I do have a couple of questions, if I may. What we talked about is the modified gross income under 24,000, correct? Modified gross income, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I almost said Mrs. Chair, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Baca, yes, that is true. It's because it's based, the credit occurs on the state income tax return. So your PIT 1, there's a rebate schedule, rebate credit schedule, so it's a PIT 1-RC, and that's where the credit would occur.
So and I've reviewed some of the testimony in previous hearings on this matter in past years, which you provided, which I really appreciate. But is it possible to really calculate, who is going to fall into this category? I think you stated in your report that there are 65,000 plus tax filers in Bernalillo County that have a modified gross income of less than 24,000. But I think as you're writing, that's unknown how many of those are property owners. Is that still a fair statement?
Commissioner Baca, the calculation was done by the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department, not by staff. They have access to everybody's income tax return. So in their system, they looked at the 2023 tax filers, and said, based on that data, that is who they used as the basis, and that's how they determined the 65,000. And that's why I was saying if I were to try to calculate it for 24, or we don't have the tax returns for 24 yet, those aren't going to be filed until April 15th of 25, and they have to be postmarked. And then let's just say if it was on the 24 tax returns don't have to be turned in until April of 25 unless you follow extension. And then it has to be turned in and received and processed by the state of New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department. And at that point in time is when we would know what the true number is for 24. This is just using 23, assuming that the same or a similar amount of individuals would file a tax return.
Right, but then you have to cross-check that pool with those that are homeowners.
Yes, and that's the 65 are the ones that are homeowners.
65,000 are homeowners and have modified income less than 24,000, is that what?
Yes, those are the number of houses, yes.
Both of those, they meet both of those criteria.
Correct. For Bernalillo.
But
So in the packets I gave you, there is a form that has the taxation how they came up with the numbers. So going back to your question, so when it talks about taxpayers with the modified gross income at those different levels, they have different ranges. It's 0 to 8,000 is 75% of the property tax liability, and on all the way up to the $24,000 modified gross income. So that tells you that there were 65,406 tax returns that fell in that criteria. But we don't know at that point how many are homeowners.
And that was my question, thank you.
Yes.
And then the second level, if you will, after that, once you cross-check those and you get whatever number that is or percentage, then there's also the question of participation and how many people will file, how many people will know about it. Is something obviously we can't predict, right? We can't determine, and part of that would be based on to what extent there's an outreach program perhaps, or what, to what extent we really want to get that out into the community. One other question I have, and I thank you, for your answers, is that, and I just reviewed some of the transcripts of the previous year's hearings, public hearings, and I thought I saw in there, and I know I saw it in there, but I'm not sure if it's part of the statutory scheme. Would a person have to be a certain age in order to participate in this? Because I saw that reference as age 65 in the past, but I don't know if that's, I didn't see it in the statute.
Not age on this particular one.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
The other property tax rebate that they get is age
Thank you.
confined.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Ray.
Thank you, Commissioner Baca. Now, other Commissioner Baca, and then
This
go
one
to
is
Commissioner Benson.
strictly on the salary, the modified gross income.
Thank you.
I may have other questions, but I just want a quick follow-up to Commissioner Frank Baca's comment. So we can't say that 100% of those will be asking for this rebate. This is where my concern is in terms of what is the real impact going to be on Bernalillo County and our budget? Because I see the real value in this real nominal $350 is what I read, rebate to someone earning $24,000 a year with a family. And those are exactly the people we want to have secured in their homes and be able to continue in their homes. And so that's my concern of, asking, I think we need to do a little deeper dive into what the actual impact is going to be on, because I don't think 100% of those people will be asking for that rebate. I don't know if there's a question there.
Yes. So, Commissioner Baca, I totally agree with you. This is an awesome thing to do. And you're right. I can't estimate it because it's an after-the-fact thing. We would have to wait until people actually filed. I'm going to put on my accounting hat now and looking at financial statements. When you are estimating something, you do the worst case. Now, you can pick a range, but you do the worst case. And so the number, the 15 million is worst case, assuming a whole lot of different variables. It could be as low as 5 million. It could be, $1 million. It just depends, again, who would actually file for that.
So is there any way for you, just to follow up and then I'll pass it up, but so is there any way, you shrugged and said it could be 5, it could be 1. Is there any way for us to dig deeper into the other counties that have passed this? So in your report, you say Doña Ana County, which is, has passed this, Santa Fe and Los Alamos have passed this many years ago, and it seems to be working. I know we're a different community, we're a larger community than all of those. But is there any way to dig deeper and find that range for us?
One of the calculations that, the thing we have to think about is the taxable value, our assessed value in Bernalillo County is a lot higher than that in Doña Ana, Los Alamos, or even Santa Fe. In Santa Fe in 2023, Santa Fe had 1,262 individuals that filed for that rebate or claimed that rebate on their tax return. 1,262. Their population is about, is 155,000, almost 156,000. Los Alamos, there was 89 individuals. Their population is 19,444. Doña Ana, they enacted it in 23, and they used their 2021 data. And at that time, they paid, it was 1,330 individuals, and their population is 225,000. Bernalillo's population is 671, almost 672,000. So I agree with you, it is hard to estimate. But again, my accounting hat and knowing the accounting rules, you have to look at what the worst case would be, and that's what you plan for. And if it comes in less, then that's what you can make adjustments for, but.
Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy County Manager Reagan, did you say that we don't have the number of the 65,000 that are below the poverty level who are homeowners?
The 65,000 from the,
I apologize, I know you were asked that.
are the people that have, what they did is they looked at the taxpayers and on the tax returns and looked at their modified gross income.
Okay.
And then, so people that had zero modified gross income to 8,000, there was 6,900 people. And so it goes all the way up, there's a range.
So it's just based on their adjusted
Their
gross
modified
income?
gross income, right.
But they also have the tax records of property taxes, correct?
Correct.
So, Mr. Chair, that's what I would recommend, is that we get that information. I think it'd be easy to cross-reference. They may not have given it, but it's got to be available. And then, I agree, that would be a liability on our books at 100%. So we should calculate 100% unless we have, to your question, Commissioner Baca, is we should be able to take the same data for other counties. How many households are under the poverty level? Which of those are property tax payers? They have that data. And then find out what percentage, and then take the percentage, and then I think it would be rational to apply a percentage range. But if we don't have that, I think we have to account for 100%, because it's a liability on our books. We do owe 100% of the people, whether they apply for it or not, we owe it to them. So they may not apply, and then that's money in our books, but we should account for 100%.
And see, it's, the hard part about the whole thing is it's based strictly on income, modified gross income. And then I don't know if, I don't even know how you'd figure out who owned a house or whatever, because you'd have to get somebody's personal information, which we don't have access to.
No, we'd have to get that,
Yeah.
correct.
So tax and rev, in the past, tax and rev wouldn't even give us a calculation, which was disheartening because we were trying to present you all with the best estimate that we could, at any point in time. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess that's the crux of it, is if we can get that data.
So I'm gonna have, she was working the calculations quite closely, so.
We all were.
We've all been doing it, so I'm gonna let my experts here.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Benson, what Tax and Rev did is they took the modified gross income taxpayers, they took a look at that. They took and they used all of the census data that's online. And what they did is, in the packet, is they went through and they said, okay, if there's 65,406 taxpayers, if we take 20% of that, and they all, 20% of that 65, and they all qualified for the 350. That tells me that $4.5 million is going to be the liability. What they further did is they looked at the US Census data and found out how many households were in the county. And then they kind of took a look at that. If we look at 68.4%, which is the census data percent of households versus our population, not tax, not the modified taxpayers, but overall, if they said 68.4 of that 65,000, that's where we get the 15 million. So what we're trying to do is figure out what that percentage is, and that's what Tax and Rev did. We didn't calculate these, we validated the calculations, we validated that those percentages were in fact from the US data or census data so that we could see exactly and we understood what they were trying to give us. This is the information that they were able to provide. To your point, if 65,406, they're not all property owners. If we use the census data that say 68.4% of the population in Bernalillo County is households, and we take that, that's the worst case scenario. But to your point, if not everybody's going to participate, because not everybody's going to have a house, correct? They're not going to be all property owners. If we were to look at it from 20%, right? You take the number, multiply it times 20%, and they all qualified for the maximum rebate. Again, we're looking at the maximum. It's a sliding scale. There was an example, I believe, in the packet that said so-and-so made $19,000 a year. Their property tax bill was $800. They would qualify based on the percentage, 45%, I believe is what it said. They would qualify for $360, but knowing that the max is $350, they would only get $350. So if a 19,000 modified gross qualified and they were a property owner and they met all the requirements, that's where you would get that information from. So what Tax and Rev did is did a percentage. They said 20% of this population of modified gross, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 5. That's the part that we're having difficulty trying to determine. But what Tax and Rev did is took all that information from the census data online to come up with these numbers. So that's why you're seeing this huge range of like, 5 million to 15 million. If you look in the beginning, and I think it was Chair Olivas had brought up, what they also did is they took a percentage. They said in the census, there's 278,000 people, households in the county. And they took 1.5% of those people who may or may not qualify. Again, we don't know if that 278 makes $24,000 or less. So they took that and they said, well, that could be 1.2. They did 1.5% because that was the average between Los Alamos, Doña Ana, and Santa Fe. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess the
Sorry,
ultimate
it's a lot
question-
of numbers. I got them all going
No,
in
the
the head.
ultimate question is, will Tax and Rev tell us, is there any kind of cross-reference? Because Tax and Rev has the incomes by address of each individual taxpayer. They also have the property tax payments by address. So if they refuse to release that information, then we're just groping around in the dark. If they release that, we can calculate that here. So I guess the question is, isn't the population size, because Los Alamos, I mean, the fact that 20 people apply for it, they're all PhDs. There's not the same population that we have here in Bernalillo County.
But Doña Ana.
Mr.
Doña
Chair.
Ana is better, but yeah, the property ownership is I think the crux of the question.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Benson, I think what you're asking, so I'm just going to be honest, we've been doing this for 10 years, and this was the first year, thanks to Audra's deep dig and researching everything that she possibly could. This is the first year that we've actually been able to get even the tax filers that qualified for that 24,000 this year. So this was the first year. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I also know that there's certain circumstances where people may own a home, but they're not listed as the property owner, right? Their mother passed away and left them a house, and now they're the property owner. May not show up on the property tax rolls just yet. I mean, eventually it will, but I'm not sure that we'll be able to get that kind of information.
I don't know that would be statistically valid, though. If we're trying to make a broad kind of generalization, I think, the mother who passed away and it's not registered in the tax rolls yet, I think that would be okay.
But what I am not sure about, Commissioner, is there's not really, the calculation isn't based on your property tax payments. So that's a total disconnect.
but we have the property tax amount, well, the state has property tax amounts per address. They also have income levels per address. We could get pretty close to the number we're looking for if we
Most-
had address as a central denominator.
Vice Chair, I mean Chair, it still says Vice Chair, sorry, Chair Olivas, Commissioner Benson, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm trying to say is that, I'm not confident that state agencies really talk across their data.
That's,
And-
yeah, that's
and
totally
so
understandable.
To
If
make,
that's the
to make
case,
that connection, I'm
Sure.
not saying that we wouldn't give it a try, but I'm not sure that that's, because they each have their own separate systems. Case in point. So we will do what we need to do. We'll follow up. We'll try to get whatever, county manager.
Thank you. I just want to weigh in for a moment, if, through the chair and to the commission. And I want to say three things. One, I want to start by saying that the staff putting this together gave you all a range, in fact, because the data that's missing is genuinely missing. So we understand that. Like, the second thing I would say is what you're asking us is to give it one more try to see if we can't find an agency that will share information that marries the modified income tax with the home ownership. And the answer to that is yes, we will take a look at it. And then the final thing I just wanted to share is that in your packets online, if you go to pages, I think it's 9, 10, or 8, 9, 10, and 11, or 8, 9, 10, those were attempts at the staff giving you the ranges based on what they researched and learned. So frankly, I think this is the most refined presentation the commission has received in probably
Yes.
10 years, so
Yes.
well done. And second, there's no downside to asking and trying to get more information before any action is taken. The last thing I would say is that for any rebate that, or I have two more things, any rebate that would be offered, I would fully expect that the commission would in addition give us direction to do the outreach so that people can in fact take advantage of it. So our goal would be to get as high a number as we can from a policy perspective, given the direction that you would give us. So think about whatever that goal is, we're going to try to shoot past it because we want to, if the commission gave us direction, we'd want to share this information with as many low-income taxpayers as we could. And then the last thing I want to say is that what Ms. Reagan and the staff shared early on is that they're a little agnostic, and I know that Senator O'Malley had a different perspective on this, but from talking to the staff, they're agnostic about the direction that you take. Their job is to give you the most conservative, well-researched proposal that they can, and that is what you have before you. And I appreciate you all jumping in because it's a little complicated and it's easy to conflate the property tax with the, and we have another one that we'll be discussing in a couple meetings from now. So we heard the request for information. We'll take all requests for information, do our very best to get that information so that you have the most robust set of facts in front of you as we take direction from you in any direction that you choose.
Thank you, Madam County Manager. Commissioner, are you finished or?
One more point. Mr. Chair, thank you. And I guess I would say, unless we can get this information, we really should, and to County Manager's point, if we don't hit 100%, then we're failing in the objective of the goal. So I think we should bank on 100% of the dollar amount. And then if it doesn't hit that, then that's leftover money for the county to use for other things. But in terms of being, trying to plan, unless we can get this data, if we can get it, that clarifies a lot, and then the argument goes away. Or if we can get the same data for the counties that are already applying it, like Dona Ana, that would help a lot. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going to jump in here real quick, and then Commissioner Barboa, and then Commissioner Barbara Baca. So what I wanted to say, just my piece here is, I think for the sake of argument, we should sort of put Santa Fe and Los Alamos aside, because I think those are fundamentally different communities, both by what we know about income, property values, all those things. I think those are those are a stretch when you include those in the average. So the one that I'm really interested is Doña Ana, because that's the second largest county in the state, I think, although I read that Sandoval's catching up pretty fast. So that's our closest comparison. I mean, we're not going to find anybody else in the state that's more similar to us. It's the second largest city in the state. I would be curious, I guess, to just kind of know those demographic profiles. How similar is it to Bernalillo County? And then looking at their uptake of this, because again, I think they are the most important comparison. Now, I agree with my colleague here that our goal should be 100%, right? If we're going to do this, the reason we do this from a policy perspective is to help low-income folks better afford their lives and try to drive, we've seen huge inflation in the last couple of years, and just try to give them a little break. And we're doing pretty well as a county. We've seen some pretty record budgets over the last couple of years that I've been on here. And sometimes that's a good thing, to not just think about growing government, but also think about what does mom and pop need? What do our folks in the community need? And for property owners in particular, as Senator O'Malley said, these are folks that face utility bills, maintenance bills, tax bills, insurance bills, right? That are in some cases unique to property owners. So I think there's a real argument to be made here for this. This could be something that's impactful and give a little bit of help to our community. But I really think that I would like to see more information specific to Doña Ana County, because they're kind of our sister here in being similar. And I'd just like to better understand what their uptake percentage was. Because I think somewhere I read that 1.5%, the first column in the TRD table, uses an average of the three counties, and I'm concerned that average is going to be perhaps weighted down by Santa Fe and Los Alamos, that are higher income counties, and so I would like to really see Doña Ana specifically. So I think that's my piece, and I'll pass it on to Commissioner Vice Chair Barboa.
Thank you so much to staff for trying to get us the most accurate information we could get. But it's quite a stretch, because if that 68% is the population of that, we know that I've lived in poverty. I've been a single mom. That they're not homeowners, and I do appreciate Commissioner Baca's nuance that, yes, in New Mexico especially, we have tradition of inheriting properties. And so there is probably a highly likely, especially in probably the rural parts of our county, the unincorporated parts of our county, that people would have inherited and still be below $24,000 a year. If we think about what $24,000, who is making $24,000 a year, they're not property owners unless they've been inherited that, or unless they're elders. So I would assume that the majority of these folks are elders living on a limited income, trying to make it, the majority of the folks that would qualify for this. Other piece is that between the three examples that we do have, they're all, from the numbers you gave us, are all less than 1% of the population that actually applied and are receiving those for those. So I can anticipate that our county would be so much staggering more, even if we, which I would want us to do robust outreach, right, for people making less than 24,000, even where we're at these days. I think that number should change to be a higher number, and still be considered sort of that's in the extreme poverty level. So those are my, according to the numbers, it's less than 1% just for the three that we've had. And I guess I just want to, there's no way we're getting close to that. And there's, if we know that, I guess my other question was when you said 20%, I couldn't understand quite. When you said the 68% are the folks that are tax filers with a modified gross income of less than 24,000. Like I said, the idea that people making 24,000, less than
No.
24,000 are homeowners is a stretch in itself. No?
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Barboa, that 68% is from the census data. That's the number, that's the percentage of households in the county.
So even that, so either way, obviously, not our count, 68% of those aren't 24,000.
No,
They're not
it's-
making 24,000.
That's the percentage that they say there's 68.4% of
they
households
took
in the county. So they took that 68% and used it towards the tax filers to come up with that worst-case scenario.
Used it towards the tax filers. That's here on your report. It says 64,406 people, tax filers in Bernalillo County had a modified gross
So if they
income.
if they applied the same methodology that they do, that they say, okay, 68.4% of there's households in the county, they applied that same methodology to the taxpayers that qualified for 24,000 or less. So it's the same methodology.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay, I understand
So
that. But
based
that
of the low-income people
of
or
the 20
people
of
with
people
that,
making
there's
less
the,
than 24,000, we took 68% of that. Which you can see at making 24,000, there's just not a way possible to be home. There, that 68% of those are homeowners. It's just not possible. Like even to the most 100%, I've made $24,000 a year before in my lifetime. You are not a homeowner at that place. So to think that it's comparable, I guess, is just. I just
and again, I want to point out, it's modified gross income, so these people could start making more than 24,000, but with all of the deductions that you can take on your tax return. Like we do, you know, your interest, all your itemized deductions, all of those things come off. I'm not trying to make it an excuse, I'm just saying it's what modified gross income. Probably if they started it at 24, they're probably in that category of the 0 to whatever, depending on their tax filings. I mean, I do taxes and I've seen people make $100,000 and get their taxable income down to $25,000, $30,000. So,
The people that can afford that are so smart.
I mean, I'm all for helping people. I volunteer to do income taxes. I do that for free. I do income taxes for our Silver Saints at our church and in our church community. Those are the things that I do. So this kind of stuff is near and dear to my heart too. And that's why I'm just trying to figure out the best information, because when I'm looking at it, I have to balance the taxpayers with the county operations who support the taxpayers at the same time. So, you know, and then some of the data is deemed confidential and they don't share. I told them, I don't want to know that Shirley Reagan is the one. I just need to know who falls in that category so I can have good data to support the calculations and give to my commission so that they can make the best informed decision based on the information that they have.
Thank you so much. And last chair, I'll just say, I totally believe in all of your hearts to try and make this work for our county, so I'm not trying to imply anything different. I just trying to make the point around, you know, home ownership is such a hard thing to accomplish, to the big American dream. And so folks making, but to your point, there's a lot of folks out there doing tax loops that get them. And last, I guess I would just say that, you know, in a time when housing's a crisis, we are trying to find multiple approaches to addressing our housing, and I often just hear we don't have many approaches to folks that are on that fringe from losing their house. We often wait until people are on the bottom and don't have a home and homeless, and then we offer them all the services, and we don't catch it at that point where they may be on the fence just about to lose their house. And so I just think, in my opinion, it feels like most of it, and hopefully we can get more data, but we want to maintain folks in their homes. I imagine that for more data we get would say that these are mostly elder folks, because to be a property owner and make that much, I can't imagine, you know, how it works out that way. But thank you for continuing to try and find the most accurate data to have us informed.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Commissioner Barboa.
Just a couple of points. I agree with what Commissioner Barboa and Commissioner Frank Baca said. You know, I'm really concerned about the older, historic neighborhoods of our community. And, you know, those are the homes and people who are on that this is a very low income of $24,000 a year, that this, legislation up at the state, was intended for the counties to address. And so we really need to do due diligence, I guess, is what I'm saying. So my question is, one, I guess, back to the county manager's point about doing some more research, I think is absolutely necessary, and I think that I'm going to move to defer to the 28th. And have you talked to Los Alamos, Doña Ana, and Santa Fe counties and how they have dealt with this? And if not, I hope that you will, and you can report back to us, not right now, but, I think that that is really key. And have you talked to an economist? I mean, do we have a full breadth of, what this means? Because I heard you say 1.6 million is the possible hit to the county, all the way up to 15 million, which is a very large spread. And, I want to know which of those are
So
accurate.
It depends
I
on
wanna
the
say we had a-
methodology that you choose.
One moment, please. We had a motion, so do we have a second on the motion for deferral?
Yeah, I move deferral till the 28th.
Sure, second.
A second from the vice chair, so we could continue discussion. I just didn't want to let that sit there.
Thank
So
you.
Go ahead, Madam Reagan, Deputy County Manager Reagan.
Oh,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Just to answer those questions real quick, and then.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Baca, the Mexico TRD economist is the one who ran all these numbers, and that's why you're seeing. And it was based, like DCM Reagan said, it's based on the methodology that you want to look at. If you want to look at there's lots of percentages in the U.S. Census, number of households. We got ours by zip code. That's how the economist pulled it, was by the zip code, and that's also in your packet. So I think what she was trying to do, I think it was a she, right? What I think she was trying to do was make sure that we had different methodologies that you could take into consideration. If you're going to look at the overall households and take a percentage of that based on what Los Alamos, Doña Ana, and Santa Fe County are doing, that's where you're going to get your 1.2. If you're going to look at the actual tax filers that qualify for that $24,000 or less and take a percentage of those, to Vice Chair Barboa's point, if we take, and what we gave you is what she gave us, was 20%, and with 20% being the lowest and 68.4 being the highest. And the 68.4 actually came from the census that says 68.4% of the population are in households. So I think it was a bunch of different methodologies, and I don't know that that we could sit and say specifically, we can give you numbers on 5% participation, or we can give you 10% if that's what you choose to do. We can definitely reach out to TRD. We got ours based on zip codes. That's what they did, is they provided the zip codes that those property tax filers were in. I don't know if they can break it down to tell us how many. We can check into that. But I also did want to mention that there is, to your point, Commissioner Baca, there is another rebate for our elderly that's already on the books that the county is not on the hook for. That income level is $16,000 or less, and you have to be 65 or older. But you don't have to be a property owner either. You can be a property owner, or you can rent based on what the tax form says. So there is something out there for the elderly population that we're not on the hook for. This would be in addition to that.
Mr. Chair, if I might add, we did reach out to Doña Ana. We pulled their agenda item, and we have the same calculation that was prepared for them by Tax and Rev, New Mexico Tax and Rev, their economist.
that's in
So
our
it's the
packet?
same kind of packet. I'm
That's
sorry.
in our packet?
No.
No. They implemented in '23, so their data is based on their '21 tax returns.
But we don't know.
Mr. Chair, if we could ask for that to be provided to us too in these next
Yes.
2 weeks, that would be great too.
Yeah. We will provide that with the other items as we'll get right on that and try to get all of that.
Okay, so we had a motion in deferral. Any further comments on that? Not seeing any. I just wanted to reiterate my thoughts again, I keep going back to Doña Ana County because I think they're just such an important party to understand. And in thinking about, again, the demographic comparison between our county and theirs would be really important to me to, understand how many more or less, as a percentage, not as a, total, low income, this type of income houses do they have? And then, like, that very first projection that TRD has, their lowest, sort of most liberal projection, how does that compare with what they saw as actual uptake or actual cost to them? Because I think that we might be able to get a pretty close number without knowing the number of property owners and cross-referencing that with taxes. If we just have a good comparison of the demographics and how similar are we and what was their uptake and overall cost and as a percentage, and shift that over to ours. Takes smarter math people than me, but I know you have them right there. So I think there's probably a way that we could get close to a ballpark of sort of what's a realistic expectation. And, to Commissioner Benson's point, I think we would like to go with the optimistic expectation that we're going to get everybody that qualifies. But like my colleagues up here said, I mean, to make that little amount of money, even if it's modified AGI, and be able to afford your house and, have paid a mortgage and all the bills and stuff that go with it, it's going to be a pretty, I feel like, just my gut is it's going to be a pretty small percentage of our population. And then of those, how many of them are actually filing taxes and then regularly filing and doing it in a way where they have professionals like our deputy county manager that are doing their taxes for them or helping them do their taxes that actually, know that and qualify them for it. I just think it's going to be, a percentage of a smaller percentage of a small, it's going to be whittled down. So anyway, it's just my piece that I think that we can, I have faith that you all can probably get us a little closer. I realize we're never going to have certainty without doing it. But did you have something? Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, when you're looking at Doña Ana's 21 tax year, of the number of returns that fell in that income range was 33,500. Bernalillo compared to our 65,400. But when you look at the number of the taxes that people that took the tax was 1,330. They're compared to their population of 225,000. Their poverty rate was 23.2%, where Bernalillo County's poverty rate is calculated by Tax and Rev at 14%, using the census data and all of that. And even with the zip codes, it's spread out all over the Northeast Heights and all of that. I mean, East Mountain, South Valley, it's all of the zip codes in Albuquerque have some percentage. We will see if they can tell us where the largest percentages lie. And I believe we can get that data because we've had to use that when we were doing the CARES grant, when we were looking at eligible households there. So we could probably get that information either from Bieber or other economists that provide that kind of data. But we will do our best, as always, to give you the information and support whatever decision you make, and we'll happy to do that. And like I said, I think all of these things are great for people to have. But again, part of my job is taking care of the whole county, taking care of you all as well in terms of, one, understanding that you have to represent your folks, but then you also have the other side. So just trying to balance everything.
Appreciate that, and thank you all have given us some great advice already, and I think we're set up to get a little bit more. So anything further? We've got a call for the question. All those in favor signal in the affirmative, say aye. Aye. For deferral. That passes 5-0. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, I just had one more comment. I think I'm just surprised that we can't find it. I wonder if some of the folks that work on housing, like HomeWide, because I think you're looking at who of low income are homeowners. I think who of homeowners are low income might be I mean, I know you're looking at both ways. I'm just saying that maybe some like HomeWise or some of the people that work on housing, I think might have a better estimate or better data to see who.
And again, we will do that, Vice Chair. The information is confidential, so as much as they'll share on averages, just kind of what they give you,
Percentages,
that's
of
what we'll definitely work that.
Thank you very much, Deputy County Manager and your whole team. So we'll hear that item again on the 28th. That takes us to item C, Planning and Development Services, a zoning code amendment adding the use of the mobile food establishment or food truck court as a permissive use. And we have our Director of Planning and Development Services, Mr. Nick Ham, to present.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Congratulations on your new positions. I'm going to defer the time here to Maggie Gould. Ms. Gould is the County Zoning Administrator and Hearing Officer, and she was responsible for shepherding these through the text amendment process. So, Ms. Gould.
Thank you, Director Ham. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners, you heard all three of these proposed amendments in November. So this is the first one, which is a proposal to amend our zoning code to allow mobile food establishments, so food trucks, but as a court, so multiple of these mobile food establishments on one lot. There are requirements for sufficient parking and access, as well as requirements for restroom facilities and sanitation facilities on the site so that the use is not burdensome to the surrounding properties. So this is an amendment we hope will provide both economic opportunities for people operating these food trucks and more food opportunities for people who are working in maybe more industrial areas. Staff did not receive any adverse comments on this from our commenting agencies, both at the CPC level and during this additional 30-day comment period. We have not received any public comment on this either. We did consult with our health protection staff with the amendments here. And as we had said in November, the county did make this amendment in 2023 to our C2 and above zones, but our CLI zone, which is our commercial light industrial zone, was left out as it doesn't link back to any of the other zones in the code. And I don't know if I went over this when we talked about this in November, but I just wanted to really quickly say for this case and all of our cases, our process for these begins with mailed notice to all of our registered neighborhood associations. And then we can use any feedback we receive from that to make needed changes. We also have an opportunity when this goes before the County Planning Commission. This is another opportunity for public comment and input, both in writing and at the hearing. And then finally, with the introduction here with you all in front of the BCC and that 30-day comment period. So we do like to hope that these zone codes do respond to existing public needs. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gould. Before we move on to discussion here, we will convene a public hearing. Did anyone sign up to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no signups for this item.
Okay, thank you. And with that, open this up to discussion or motions, questions or motions, I should say. Yes, Commissioner Frank Bach.
Just a quick question. I think I know the answer to this, but this applies only to food courts as that's defined separately from a individual food truck. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Frank Baca, yes. So the current zoning code allows up to 2 food trucks on a site. This opens up the possibility for more trucks on larger sites.
And just for my edification, are we talking about a developed site or just sort of an informal site where people gather?
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Frank Baca, yes. So these require, the idea is to have this be less random and kind of a little bit more contained. So a site plan is required, like we said, the sanitation facilities are required. So the intent is rather than kind of having a random configuration, that if you had maybe in like our more industrial areas like South Broadway or, like North 4th Street, you could set up a space on this lot and say, we have room for 4 trucks, there would be parking spaces, there'd be trash, there'd be bathrooms, all of that. To give, sort of hopefully more food opportunities in those areas where there maybe aren't as many restaurants, and to provide some opportunity for our food vendors,
Thank you.
of course.
Any other questions here? Anyone want to entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Benson. I'll second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
And then I believe you're the next item as well.
All right, this brings us then to item 11D, which is a zone code amendment to allow secondary dwellings permissively in the A1, A2, and R1 zones. So those are our agricultural, residential, and residential zones. For lots meeting specific criteria, and to allow them conditionally for lots that do not meet specific criteria. And so this piggybacks on an amendment that was made in 2022. The county approved secondary dwelling units as a conditional use, provided the lot on which the use is going to go meets the requirements of the underlying zone in terms of size, also setbacks, separation distance, all of those things. What this amendment does is this allows secondary dwelling units, so casitas, an additional house on the property, permissively when you have the lot size that meets the underlying zone and you can meet all of your separation and setback requirements, but would allow them as a conditional use on lots that are maybe a little bit less than the standard size required by the underlying zoning, and maybe where you need some relief on your separation distance and your setbacks. And this is coming out of, we've had interest in secondary dwelling units on lots that are, so like if you have an A1 lot and it's a required 1 acre, people who have 3/4 of an acre but would still have space to have that dwelling unit fit nicely. So those would be the conditional use. They would go in front of the zoning hearing examiner, the zoning administrator, just to make sure that that's going to fit. The other thing that would be allowed as part of the conditional use would be some relief on your setbacks, so how far the building is away from your property line, and your separation distance. The current legislation requires that your primary dwelling unit and your secondary dwelling unit be no more than 35 feet apart. And so I think that was to make sure that you can't kind of build something out in the back and ignore it. But we have people, mostly in the East Mountains, but other parts of town too, where you have some topography issues. And so, maybe the primary house is here on a flat spot, the secondary house is going to be over here on another flat spot, but they are farther apart. But again, would still fit in with the character of that. And so this ordinance has built in, again, that flexibility, also requirements, and this came from some public comment, that the primary and secondary dwelling be harmonious so that they have some architectural relationship to each other. And again, the idea is that you're building kind of a long-term quality residential unit. It does not allow for mobile homes. It does not allow for manufactured homes. They have to be a conventional stick-built home or a modular home. So again, no adverse agency comments on this. MAFCA did request that we update grading and drainage plans if needed, and that's something that is already addressed through our building permit process. And I believe that's all I have.
Okay. So with this, the same thing, we will now convene a public hearing. Did anyone sign up to speak?
There are no signups. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And I would like to jump on in this right away and make a motion to approve this ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Benson. And I just wanted to quickly say, I sat down with a meeting with Director Ham and DCM Townsend last year. I don't remember when it was in fall. And I brought up this subject just kind of in passing. Are we thinking about this? I had a couple constituents that reached out asking questions about being able to build ADUs in the East Mountains for their relatives. And I think that's a win-win. More housing, keeping families together, strengthening our families. And to your credit, you guys were already on it. You said, we're already working through the process. It's running through the Planning Commission and working through staff. And so you were meeting the community need before I knew that they were asking for it, put it that way. But this is really great for meeting our housing shortage. It's not going to solve the problem in itself, but it's just one more step in the right direction. So really appreciate y'all and the work that you've done on this. And I think it's going to help. I know it's going to help my constituents. Any other discussion on this? Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I totally agree with this. I just didn't quite understand, does the amendment make it so that you all could be more flexible when improving these, or is it just making everything more, like, is it changing the actual?
So, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, it provides flexibility in two ways. So one, it makes something that's currently a conditional use where you have to go through a public hearing permissive. And then it provides flexibility for properties that wouldn't be able to meet that current conditional use standard.
Okay. And folks would know that because you would, when they come to you with their issues, you would inform them. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, signal affirmative. Aye. And none opposed, the motion carries 5-0. And last one.
All right, last one, which is item 11E. This is a zone code amendment to adopt definitions and use regulations for indoor shooting ranges in the C1, C2, CLI, M1, and M2 zones, and to allow outdoor shooting range as a special use in our designated rural areas. And this came out of some discussions with the public and also with our own sheriffs. And so currently, the Bernalillo County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance does not have any provisions for indoor or outdoor shooting ranges. And so this amendment seeks to allow safe places for firearms education and training for law enforcement and for sport shooting. And so as we don't have those currently in the code, this would provide definitions relating to the use. And so the proposed amendment would allow indoor shooting ranges as a conditional use in the C1 zone, so in our lowest commercial zone. And then, so that requires a public hearing in front of the zoning administrator to determine whether this is a use that's going to fit in the area that's being proposed. And then permissive in our C2, so our higher commercial, CLI, M1 and M2, so our heavy commercial, industrial, and manufacturing zones. And this amendment includes use requirements, following all state and federal regulations, also requiring a noise study to ensure compliance with the county's noise ordinance, and again, to kind of make sure that these fit where they're being proposed. And then outdoor shooting ranges could be developed under a special use permit, but only in the designated rural areas of the comprehensive plan, and with a 40-acre minimum for the site. So again, these are outdoor shooting ranges, we're looking at those in our more rural area where there are larger tracts of land, not in areas where they're going to impinge on kind of, residential uses. And we did look at regulations in other communities in the West, and we also looked at the city of Albuquerque in order to inform this proposal. So our hope is that this amendment provides areas for people to use firearms safely and may reduce firearms use in unauthorized areas. So when people are simply driving out to the Mesa or up to the East Mountains. We did not receive any public comment on this at any point in the process.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gould. We'll now convene a public hearing. Did anyone sign up to speak on this item?
Not for this item, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any further questions, or anyone want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A motion for Commissioner Benson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Barboa. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signal in the affirmative. Yes?
Aye.
Any opposed? See none. Passes 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gold. Excellent.
All right, now we're moving on to our resolutions for the evening. Madam Clerk, can you please provide resolution numbers for the following items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can you clarify, would you like all three of these items under 12?
Yep,
The numbers for all three of them? Okay.
Yes, please, thank you.
Yes, sir. For item 12A, FR 2025-5, 12B is AR 2025-6, 12C is AR 2025-7, And I just had a moment to clarify 12A is FR 2025-5. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So we'll go ahead and start with item A, Economic Development, the FY24 Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation SMART Grants. And we have Executive Development Officer Marcos Gonzalez to present. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the Economic Development Staff requests acceptance of the FY24 SMART Grant from the USDOT for the I-40 Trade-Port Corridor Project. Also authorization for the county manager to execute the grant agreement and subsequent amendments to the agreements and other related documents associated with this grant. The federal funds will be devoted to the data gathering across the I-40 corridor in order to create a virtual platform of the I-40 Trade-Port Corridor supply chain system, and will allow us to monitor, analyze, simulate real-world activity, efficiencies, and safety in real time. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Barbara Baca.
I'm not sure I'm smart enough to ask smart questions on the SMART grant. So my question is, you said it's to analyze on the corridor of the I-40 trade port. What is that corridor?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Baca, so that core is looking at the I-40 from LA to Albuquerque right now, and we're working with UC Berkeley to actually virtually using AI and other technology pieces about how freight really moves across the corridor and how transportation systems talk to each other as well, meaning with the New Mexico DOT, ADOT, and CalDOT, and eventually as a vision as from coast to coast as these different transportation systems would talk to each other. And from a safety perspective, as freights from efficiency and safety piece is if there's like an accident in Kingman, how do we then reroute that traffic to more efficient a manner and get the good to where it needs to go. So it's a management of a lot of transportation systems that don't talk to each other, that currently do not talk to each other, and tracking systems that don't talk to each other as well. So, and working with UC Berkeley to design a system that actually talks to each other for the country to be able to move goods more efficiently throughout the country and also in a safer manner as well.
So it is focused on the I-40
Yes.
corridor.
Currently, this piece is focused on the I-40 corridor, but doesn't mean that once the technology is developed that it couldn't be pushed into the I-10 corridor or I-70 or any transportation corridor for the country.
Mr. Chair, one last question. So are you working with Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments on our transportation planning? And I'm assuming that they're going to be folded into the analysis that you do with UC Berkeley?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, yes, we're working with them and New Mexico DOT, and they've been supportive of the grant and supportive of us getting these type of grant funds to better the roads for New Mexico and then the whole corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll make a second. No further discussion here. All those in favor signal in the affirmative. Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. And you're up next on item B, the project revenue bonds for Via Hermosa.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the Economic Development Staff requests approval of the inducement resolution in connection with a proposed project located within Bernalillo County for the purpose of financing the planned acquisition and rehab of Via Hermosa through the development of the project site and operations set forth in the project plan, providing the conveyance of the proposed project to the county for purposes of facilitating tax abatement for the proposed project, memorializing the commitment of Albuquerque Leased Housing Associates to LLLP and its subsidiary Dominion Development and Acquisition to maintain affordability throughout. So all that language says that there's an existing 288 unit apartment complex that's being purchased by Dominion Development, and they are going to be rehabbing those 288 units similar to what we did in St. Anthony's before this evening, and they'll maintain affordability for the next 30 years. And I just wanted to let the Commission know that this item and the next item are both related to Dominion Development and Acquisition, and there is a representative here this evening if you had any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioner Baca, you're sponsoring this first item. I'll let you have the floor.
I move approval.
Okay, I'll second. Any further discussion here? Yes, Commissioner Frank
I
Baca.
just have a generic question again, just for my edification. How is affordability guaranteed over the period of, what, 30 years, I guess?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Frank Baca, the affordability is guaranteed through the lease agreement that they have. So essentially, they'll convey the property over to the county and we'll lease it back to them. And through that lease agreement, they also convey that they'll be providing affordability, but then also through their tax credits and through some other mechanisms, there's also checks in from HUD and their investors that they maintain affordability. And if they're not in compliance, they risk of losing those other financial components that make up the project.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries 5-0. And item C. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff requests approval of the inducement resolution in connection with the Desert Willow project through this development of the project site and set forth in their project plan, providing for the conveyance of the proposed project for the county purposes of facilitating tax exemption. This is to further the commitment, again, of Albuquerque Leased Housing Associates to LLP and their subsidiary Dominion Development Acquisition that will maintain affordability throughout the lease term. So this is an existing 224-unit apartment complex that will once again be purchased by Dominion Development Acquisition, rehabbed, and will maintain affordability for the next 30 years as well. And this project is unique that it's a project that we've already been working with, and so they'll be able to keep and maintain that affordability for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioner Benson, you're sponsoring this item. I'll let you have the floor first.
Yes, I make a motion
I'll
to
second.
approve.
Any further discussion or comments here? Yes, Commissioner Baca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I neglected to ask, you have a Dominion representative here. I don't know where they are out of. Where is Dominion located? What, and you came all this way. We want you to come down and say hello to us.
We'll let Ms. Representative say a few words.
Hi, Mark Lamming with Dominion. We are originally a Minneapolis-based company. During COVID, we regionalized, and so we have development offices in Phoenix, Dallas, and Atlanta, and I'm out of the Phoenix office.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to some good affordable housing projects.
Yeah, we look forward to keeping it affordable for the next 30 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for being here. I just had one comment, really, just like all of these PRBs and IRBs and things that we do. I know that you all put an annual report before us at some point. I remember seeing one. And I just wanted to suggest, you know, this is a real achievement of your department, of our county, and it deserves to really be highlighted. And I just, you know, I wanted to suggest, I think you do highlight it, but just to reiterate that that's something we should really prominently highlight, how many units we rehab every year through these mechanisms, how many units we build every year through these mechanisms, because it's a really important function of your office, your department, but of our whole board and our county.
And Mr. Chair, just to let you know, we are working on our annual report, and we bring that to the commission, and we will be sure to highlight how many of the units that we're rehabbing, and then also how many new units that we put into production as well.
Fantastic. Really glad to hear that. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll close the floor. All those in favor signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
All right, our last approval item here, we have the Behavioral Health Initiative, our small behavioral health providers, capital and startup services, and Deputy County Manager Wayne Lindstrom to present. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The Behavioral Health Authority Division has an allocation within its Behavioral Health Initiative gross receipts tax in the amount of $2 million in order for behavioral health provider organizations to qualify for these small startup and capital grants. The major stipulation is that they have annual operating budgets of less than $500,000. So given those parameters, we're asking the commission to consider a motion to authorize the county manager to award RFP number 36-24-EM for small behavioral health providers, capital and/or startup services under the Behavioral Health Initiative. In addition, to authorize the county manager to execute and approve agreements with awarded contractors resulting from this solicitation, and to authorize the county manager to approve future amendments or subsequent agreements in accordance with AR 2023-77.
Do we have a motion?
I'll
Or
move,
Commissioner-
I'll move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion or, yes?
Yes, Mr. Lindstrom, what is the amount of these capital awards that would go out?
Well, we did a solicitation for requests for proposals, and we received 3. And we're currently in negotiations with those 3 applicants. And given that the allocation is $2 million, I can't specify what each of these 3 will be individually, but the cap will be the $2 million.
$2 million divided by 3?
Correct.
Okay, that's a lot of money for 3 companies for a startup, when their revenue is up to $500,000 each? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'd like more discussion. That seems extremely generous for a startup company, for free money.
If I might, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Benson, this is also for capital dollars as well. So if you're talking about building a new structure or expansion to an existing structure, that amount when it comes to construction doesn't go very far. So it isn't for only startup operations. That's just one of the things that these dollars can be used for.
Madam Vice Chair Barboa? Refinish, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I assume that they might, well, I'm not gonna get into our process, but I just wanna say, so when I first came onto commission, I actually asked for, in recognizing that a majority of so much of our funds go to large institutions because of the liability. You and I have had this discussion, but also to bring it back up in front of our new county manager, right? That so many of our behavioral health dollars go to large institutions because of our own processes with it. And so I had asked originally, can we have a tiered structure where we know at least folks that are like a middle budget, not a large institution like the University of New Mexico, but a middle tier and a small tier. And this was the only thing that came of that at that time. And I was also surprised that it was at 500. So the staff, I had mentioned that. Thankfully, the staff worked on it and came back. I did originally think, and I think our process from there and our continued process to only have 3 applicants, it was really hard the first year to even get any applicants under the 500,000. That's like 1 employee, maybe an office building or half a secretary or something. And so I guess when I thought, I wonder what a tier, under some expertise around what is the basis, what a tiered structure would look like for our behavioral health dollars, thinking about in that vein that we're right now give a lot to large institutions. And so I'm glad to hear that there has been at least 3, because the first round we did this, there was none. Then we tried again, and I really think, and then I had a few folks that I know, providers in the community that are those small providers. They had one of the providers. It was just her and another friend that were like co-providing, doing behavioral health. And so I sent this to her when we had first gotten in. I known we didn't have any, and she engaged. I sent it to a few providers, but I followed up with her, and she was like, it was just too onerous. And so for a small provider like me, that I'm the only one running me and this other person are the ones running the show here. We don't have secretaries to call our appointments. We don't have collections agents, to follow up on those who didn't pay their insurance payments or whatever. Our application process and the requirements for it were too onerous for someone with such a small budget like her, as under 500,000. And I know you and I have also talked about our process for applying for our funds. I guess so I approve this. I think we should be working towards this. I don't know if that 2 million means it has to be separated into the 3, or if they're making a request based on their need and you're deciding from there. I think I can leave that up to you. I just would like a reanalysis of to more get to my point of like, how do we provide more funding to those small groups? I think of folks like Black Health Leadership that does year round, but they don't want to grow to be a large scale provider. They want to be able to do good with the small amount of folks that they're serving, but they're definitely over a 500,000, but they're not in the range of a UNM institution, right? So I guess just now that you're hearing my hopes for this, what I think became of this small behavioral health budget provider, if we can think about that. And I didn't know it to be capital and startup specific before, but I'm open to that too. I think that is helpful. I think that might have been when we weren't getting any small providers, that because it's hard to exist under $500,000, that might have been when they changed it to startup funds. That's my assumption. But those are my comments, and I still support this to get some of these small providers.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Barboa, this allocation occurred before my arrival. How it's been structured and procured, et cetera, those decisions were also made prior to my arrival. I'm certainly open to doing an analysis, looking at a tiered approach, making the application process perhaps less onerous. We've talked a lot about reducing administrative burden and looking at alternatives and potential exemption to our county procurement code to allow for building a behavioral health provider network and et cetera. So this will be all in our strategic plan and further refined as we move into planning the budget for next fiscal year and implementing the new strategic plan with new capacity infrastructure starting July 1.
Do you have any follow-up, Commissioner? Okay. No, thank you. Commissioner Benson and then Commissioner Barbara Bach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any follow-up with these awarded organizations that if they get the almost $700,000 funding, does Bernalillo County follow up to make sure it's being spent well, that they're actually meeting the needs of the community with behavioral health? And is there any type of clawback if they're not doing so?
All of those types of provisions are indeed in the contractual language that governs the awarding of these funds. And we do expect progress reporting and do have staff assigned who follow them up, provide guidance relative to the implementation and meeting whatever the scope of work was that was negotiated in establishing the contract. So yes, we will be following them, and if it's necessary to claw back, we would do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And so there is potential for clawback from these organizations. Actually, thank you, Mr. Lindstrom. That's it for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Barbara Baca.
So this was set up before your time, I get that, and so now we advertised once and didn't get any responses, is that accurate?
What I was referring to, sorry, was just the first year that we ran it, not this year's
Oh,
run.
okay. So it's new. And so do you have the ability, I mean, if you had gotten 10 responses, you'd have divided that 10 million into those that, met your specifications and separated it out equally? Or do you have the authority, Dr. Lindstrom, to determine whether all of this 2 million is used or a portion of it is used? Or what is your
So
authority
may I
to-
just
to,
weigh in very, may I weigh in
appoint
very
this?
quickly
Yeah,
through
Madam
the?
County Manager, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So first of all, the original pot, and let me just say, our combined length of time here is like an hour. So as I say this, we started with $2 million. What's in front of you today is 1.344 million, because that's what was left in the pool after the process. It's not equally divided. It has to do with what people propose, and we're negotiating with each proposer. We will affirm, and I see Annie in the audience, so if I'm saying anything inaccurate, please, you just jump right in. But I will affirm that in writing to all of you what the evaluation is, as well as the opportunity when necessary to do clawbacks when we use that, because I haven't seen that in a contract yet. Annie, are there clawbacks in this contract, to your knowledge?
And is it possible to have a remainder after this award for a follow-up year?
Good question. Annie?
I'm sorry, can we repeat the question?
Are there
Commissioner?
clawbacks in these contracts?
There's clawbacks in all of our contracts.
Great.
Madam Manager.
Great, and we are, then with just the evaluation component, because the contract's not in the packet, I would just want to send that so you all are assured that we're looking at the quality of the work that we're getting for the public dollars. And then I apologize, your follow-up question was?
Yeah, is it possible to have a remainder? So this actually helps shed some light. So it's not guaranteed that we would grant all dollars in this round. There may be an additional round where additional providers could apply, correct?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Benson, that is correct. And relative to Commissioner Baca's question earlier, if we had 10 proposals, it doesn't mean that we would fund 10. Those 10 proposals might exceed the money available. And so based on the evaluation, we might have to prioritize and pick the top 3 or 4, et cetera, that we would deem appropriate for a contract award under this particular allocation.
Thank you, Dr. Lundstrom. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Commissioner Barbara, I let Commissioner Benson jump in there. Did you have any follow-up, or you good? Okay. Any further discussion or comments on this? I had a little piece. I think all my questions were mostly answered about just sort of the setup of this, and I guess it seems to me like this is a little unusual, but you guys might correct me in that, like, usually we approve contracts with the contract, essentially, or like, we approve the final thing, and it has the whole thing of how we solicited bids and all that, and this is a little bit abnormal. Am I on the right track, or?
Mr. Chair, yes, you are correct.
Okay.
The normal process is to take contracts before commission so they can review the contract, award the procurement, award the contract to the highest ranked firm. In this case, the Department of Behavioral Health wanted to take this motion before that happened. We have been in contract negotiations for some time. I don't think the full intent is to award that 1.4 million to the highest. We have had a low response to submittals on the small provider RFP. We have gone out many times for solicitation, so it is our intent to keep advertising so those dollars are expended.
Okay. And then the follow-up that I had is just as we think about this in the future, maybe I wanted to throw out an idea, and I actually introduced this to Deputy County Manager in a meeting we had the other day, but I wonder, and this is just for the commission to ponder along with staff, county manager, if perhaps in the future, maybe we would like to be, and I mean, we're not getting a huge response, so this might make it even worse, but maybe we would like to be more specific in our target, because this is just kind of broad, like capital and startup. And I'm just thinking of like one provider in particular that I'm familiar in the International District. They have this idea, this hope, this dream, right, to convert a part of their facility into some additional living space for really what's kind of like a graduated peer support program, where people graduate out of their treatment program and would move into more of a peer support role on site. I'm getting overly specific there, but the idea there being that, let's say we wanted to set a goal for the next time we did this of, we want to encourage existing small providers to build housing, or we want to encourage existing small providers to add treatment beds, or we want to encourage additional peer support positions. Whatever our goal is, I would suggest that maybe in the future as we approach these, maybe being a little more specific would help us achieve our strategic goals and be more targeted in our approach. I'm not saying this is bad or in any way. I think that's important. We support our small providers because we just spent, is it 40 million on the crisis triage center between what we put in for capital and operating costs for our partners at UNM. And that's just one project, that's a massive project, but we're fine with giving a lot of money to entities that have, taxing authority, revenue authority, all those kinds of things. And for these small providers, I think it's way harder for them to raise capital. They can't go to the well, some of them do, but if you're making under 500,000 a year, you probably can't go to the legislature. You're probably busy working in your clinic or whatever it is. So just some thoughts. I support this. I think this is good. We need to support small providers. So seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, our last item is a discussion item. We've got the Public Works Division Director Antonio Jaramillo to present on the SPEED program. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Let me pull up my presentation here. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, and Madam County Manager. Again, my name is Antonio Jaramillo, and I am the Director of Operations and Maintenance. Before I get with my update for the Speed Enforcement Initiative, I would like to thank a couple of people who have made this project a success. First, I would like to thank our Program Manager, Alicia Sizemore Lopez, who has moved on to another position within Bernalillo County, but it was instrumental in setting up this program. In addition, I'd like to thank Tyler Weiss, who is our traffic intern, our law enforcement officers who review each and every citation, as well as make this program a success. My traffic section manager, Afshin Jian, and our vendor, Ultimate, who has been with us every step of the way. In addition to that, also acknowledge Madam County Manager and DCM Elias Archuleta for supporting this program to help reduce speeds along our roads and make our streets a lot safer. Today we'll be talking about some of these items here again, and in review. I'm not going to bore you with all that, so just keep on going. The speed enforcement ordinance was approved by this commission on February 21st of 2023. We worked with procurement and business services to issue an RFP, and we chose our vendor Ultimate for implementing this program. We currently employ 2 part-time retired law enforcement officers to review and approve each and every citation that is issued, as well as a program coordinator, full-time. Locations of the cameras were based off of data provided by the Mid-Region Council of Governments and input from law enforcement. These locations are roadways that experience high rates of speed and high rates of crash rates. Currently, the locations are installed on county-maintained roadways, and have 5 additional cameras will be installed on NMDOT roadways in the coming months. We began the program with a 30-day warning period, and we started issuing citations on September 25th of 2024. Our South Valley locations and this is our current locations. Our South Valley locations are here off of Isleta Boulevard, Arenal Boulevard, Bridge Boulevard, and we also have a mobile trailer that is placed along Shelley Road, which is the roadway that goes up to MDC. And our other locations in District 4 are Paradise Boulevard and Golf Course Boulevard. Some of the future locations that I mentioned before are here. One is on Coors Boulevard between Sage and Tower. Coors Boulevard between Gun Club and Las Estancias. New Mexico 500, which is Dennis Chavez, here between Condeshire and Coors Boulevard. Alameda Parkway Boulevard between North Rio Grande Boulevard and I believe that one is Guadalupe Trail. Yes, thank you. And our final one here is on Tramway Boulevard, just north of San Rafael. We also are looking at additional locations on New Mexico 14 between I-40 and Frost Road and near the intersection of New Mexico 333 and 217. Also, our mobile camera is available to be deployed in different locations that we have documented speeding issues that we have identified, so it can be deployed anywhere at any time. Kind of getting into the revenue, and again, this is only about 3 or 4 months worth of information. We are reconciling December's numbers, so this doesn't include December's numbers. Currently, we have received a little over $258,000, and over 3,500 citations have been paid. Again, some of the expenses that we've experienced with what we call ATA temporary services, which is the law enforcement officers and the program coordinator, as well as the cell phone, and we also have to do a state set aside. That is basically half of the revenue that we receive, and minus the expenses, gets sent to the state. We paid that actually a couple days ago, our first payment. A little more of a breakdown. October revenues were in the amount of $39,800, which is what Bernalillo County received, and the vendor received $13,850, and 553 citations were paid. In November, we had over 3,000 citations that were paid, which the total was for Bernalillo County 198,000. And the vendor received 95. There was some overpayment in that time frame, so that's why they have a little bit more of the pie in that time frame. Total citations to date. These are the citations that were issued. So we have over around 30,000 citations that were issued in the months September, October, November, and December. Community service, wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit more. Community service is a component and an option in lieu of paying the $100 citation fee. We have received 237 requests for community service, and we have completed over 238 hours of community service with our clean team. This resulted in a benefit of about $2,800 of labor hours. We have begun working with our animal care department to allow the community service hours to be performed at their facility, and we are setting up a program to allow for community service to be performed at community centers. These two options are available as an alternative to the clean team and for individuals who have identified as having mobility issues or physical limitations. We have also been working with our vendor to provide a more user-friendly website experience when navigating through the web service. We have set up a kiosk here at Alvarado to allow for citations to be paid via the internet. And for those individuals who don't have internet, we have that available to them. And we also have 3 different options for payment. We have, you can either pay online, as I mentioned before. We also have a phone number that individuals can call and pay over the telephone. And we also have the ability to send in checks or money orders to pay the citations. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Commissioner Barbara Baca, and then we'll go to Commissioner Benson, and then Commissioner Barboa and other Baca.
Thank you, Antonio. So when you start a new camera and identify a new road, it's based on data that you have that there is a speeding problem, is that right?
Chair Olivas and Commissioner Baca, yes, that's exactly what we do. We have information that we gather from the Mid-Region Council governance, as well as we contacted the Sheriff's Office to ensure that these are going to be effective. So we identify locations that have high speed rates and have been identified having a speeding problem or high crash rates. So those are the locations of where we're implementing them.
And a follow-up, when you open a new road to surveillance, do you let people know? I mean, in advance, I mean, you know, part of this is education. I know that's why you have a 30-day warning period, right, of just a warning citation, correct?
Sure.
But do you do some, you know, you're gonna be watched now, you better, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop speeding.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Baca, so along with all of these locations, we have warning signs that are in advance of all of the cameras. So it does warn those individuals that are along the corridor that there is a camera in the area. So, and those go up prior to any type of enforcement. That's one mechanism that we have. We also have a lot of information on our website, as well as we've been doing a lot of interviews with the media to try to inform everybody that these are coming, the additional ones are coming, and the ones that are there already established, they have the signs already there.
And so the signs remain the whole, I mean, just for a period of time, or how long?
No,
the signs are
the signs will be there the entire life of the camera.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Antonio. You have rolled out an excellent program. I'm very proud of it. Thank you, commissioners, for supporting this program. I want to throw in some, not so much questions, but just points of clarification that the cameras aren't intended to replace law enforcement. It's a force multiplier. When I first proposed this ordinance, at the time, Albuquerque was the second deadliest city in the nation, and Coors Boulevard was the deadliest street in the nation for pedestrians through traffic accidents. And it's one of those rankings where we're, first at being the worst or whatever. And so this was in an effort to start to turn those numbers around, and almost all of my constituents were pushing for this and have since thanked me for this program, except for one. I did have one push back. And I said, hey, here's the solution. Don't speed. Obey the law. Problem solved. It's that easy. You have the power. So, and I noticed that actually the number of citations decreased from November, December. And there's more traffic in December than in November with shopping and families and celebration stuff. So I'm hoping that the goal is not to raise money, although that money will be spent on public works. It's not like, there's going to be a big party. It's going back into roads, the stuff that you're already working on. The goal is not to raise revenue. It's to decrease traffic accidents, decrease loss of life, make the city safer, remove our ranking of number one, and start going in the opposite direction. So, well done, and I turn to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Vice Chair Barboa.
Thank you, Mr. Adamio, for bringing this to us. And I just, similar questions, I guess I had of the 30,000 issued, it sounded like, and I was trying to keep track of it, like only a percentage of that has been paid.
Correct.
And so what's the next step for folks who haven't paid and haven't set up community service?
So, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair Barboa, we haven't established any type of collection agency. That's something that we're considering, we could potentially consider in the future, but as of right now, we don't have any of that. We are getting a higher compliance rate than what we anticipated, so that is a good thing. We based it off of what the city of Albuquerque was experiencing, so our compliance rate is a little bit higher. That being said, you know, again, this is not a moneymaker. This is more of to change habits. So if we're seeing that drop in citations and such, I think that's a good indicator that we're being effective. So I don't want to focus on the money. I want to focus on the behavior. And so if we're seeing the numbers go down, I think that's an opportunity. But that being said, you know, we want people to pay their citations because, again, sometimes if it stings a little in your pocketbook, you change your behavior. Also, it does provide a good opportunity for people to do community service. We're seeing a lot of requests coming forward, and with the new programs that we're having, I think it will be a benefit to a lot of programs within Bernalillo County. So I think it's a win-win for everybody.
And so right now, there's not a civil or criminal charge that folks get for not.
Correct. You are not. There's no points on your driver's license or any of that. It's mainly paying the citation.
Thank you. And I do agree that the deterrence thing and COVID was harsh. But does so for the folks that haven't paid, how long will you did this just start in September? Did we just start?
Yes, it started in September.
Okay, so we'll be able to track over time, but of the folks that haven't paid, how long will you hold on to, and are you giving regular notices, like you still haven't paid, or?
That's a good
Sign
question.
up for community service.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Barboa, yes, we give them 30 days to pay the citation. They can request a continuance based off, you know, they're not going to be here in town to do the community service, or they don't have the means currently, but they need more time. We do issue those on a case-by-case basis. But we were thinking to have this program implemented with like 6 months to 9 months before we think about going after anybody who haven't paid. And yes, every month we're giving them warnings. Hey, you haven't paid. You know, do you need help? We give them options again to do community service. So the fee goes from $100 to $25. So it's a little bit more affordable, but again, it takes 4 hours out of their time frame. But it is available. So we're trying to work with every single person that wants to do right and pay the citation to do that.
And then last chair, thank you, Mr. Amarillo. I think I heard Commissioner Benson answer this question, but it sounds like revenue, I was gonna ask, where do revenues go? Is that, it sounds like it's going to Public Works. Is that in full or part to general fund?
It will all go to my department under traffic. The intent is to increase safety. So we're looking at, there are some existing lights and signals that need to be upgraded. Some of our signals are about 30, 40 years old that have not been upgraded. So this gives us an opportunity to go after those signals, to put new detection, to make things more efficient, as well as any type of safety projects that we have identified that need to be funded. So that's an opportunity there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Frank Baca first, and then you're good? Okay. Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Armijo, I just want to verify also, there's one mobile trailer that can be moved, you know, at the drop of a hat almost. But all of the locations are, I would call them mobile. It's not a whole lot of work in it. And if there's an area that traffic starts slowing down and the speeding ceases to be a problem, we can actually remove those cameras and put them in another location. They can be on any traffic light with a power source, if I'm correct. And it's all justified based on data that's being collected through law enforcement, through traffic studies on where the dangerous speeding streets are, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. And I'll just say, for my piece, I'm glad to see those 2 East Mountain locations finally made your list. Like 99% of the time, I'm going to be somebody that's up here saying, what's the data show? What's the data show? The problem in the East Mountains is that it's hard to collect data. We have a very small area command out there as far as what our sheriff's department looks like. And if they're going to more serious calls, you know, this is frequently the response I get when I send concerned constituents to the sheriff's office. We get very thoughtful replies from the sheriff's team, but, you know, they will say, look, the issue is on a good day, we might have 4 deputies out there on a good day. And in most cases, you gotta send 2 to each location because it's so remote, you know, bad service, all those things. A lot of times they just don't have the resources to run traffic. And so if you're not running traffic, you're not collecting a whole lot of data. These are rural areas. A lot of these folks are not the type that are gonna, you know, park their car and call the police and wait. I just think that it's a little harder to collect data, and not to mention that in this case, it's really a force multiplier because of the fact that it can be so hard for the sheriff's department to devote a deputy or a couple of deputies to running traffic in an area where the neighborhood might see a real speed problem, but at whatever time they're there, you know, it's minimal. Or maybe it's minimal compared to what they're seeing in the South Valley, but for my constituents, it's still a big deal and it's a big safety concern. So I appreciate that those made the list, and you know, I think we absolutely want to be data driven, but we've also got to make sure that we're responding to constituents.
So Mr. Chair, I want to just add to that. We do have counters and speed counters that we can deploy at any moment, and that's how we do and verify the locations for the mobile speed camera. So we can deploy those at any location. Unfortunately, New Mexico 14 is a DOT facility, so we would have to get permission to do that, but we can definitely do that and collect some of that data for you to see and identify, is there a speeding problem or if there's not a speeding problem. So, and that's how we intend to figure out the location, at least on New Mexico 14.
Great, I really appreciate that. And then the last thing, I was just gonna reiterate the issue about the funding. I think that's really good that we're reinvesting it into safety initiatives within the public works section. You know, I know how woefully underfunded we are in that area. We could put it in anything in public works, and it's probably a good thing. So, and just to be clear, that is part of the ordinance, so that can't be moved to, you know, other areas, other initiatives.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, great. I think that's all I have. Anybody with follow-ups up here? All right, thank you, Director Jaramillo. And so that takes us to the announcement of our next commission meeting. We have a nuisance abatement appeal Tuesday, January 28th at 4 p.m. right here in the Ken Sanchez Commission Chambers. And then we have an administrative meeting that same evening at 5 p.m., January 28th, again in these chambers. And with that, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.